Well, hi. You are listening to Castles and Cryptids, where the castles are haunted and the cryptids are cryptic as fuck. And the hosts are chatty as fuck. You probably know
Yes.
that if you've been here before.
Yeah.
But I am Alanna, if you have not.
And I'm Kelsey.
I don't know if you ever listened to Wine and Crime recently, but they've done it so many times now from 4 years or so that they still strive to announce their names, but then usually they go, Kenyon does the announcement and then they'll be like, and she's like, oh, and I'm Kenyon, fuck. And then they'll be
Cute.
like, oh, and I'm Lucy, god damn it, and yeah, they all just, and I'm Amanda, what the hell,
That's pretty good.
Well, I mean, you say it so many times, I could see you just being like, do we still have to?
Yeah, and it's funny because then on Patreon, we're both awkwardly how do we start without it? Right? It's how do we start the episode?
Right? It's a little bit more organic? Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
We just bring you right into the middle of us talking. No. Not
Yeah,
quite.
I like to say it, but at the same time, I don't know. Still haven't figured out how to say it and get the music going, Oh, hang on, there's a fucking fruit fly. Oh, I will kill you! Nope, I will not. Technology. Bane of my existence. Yeah. Anyway. It's a new episode.
Yeah.
How exciting.
I guess we're recording this on a Friday, so if you're listening to this the day it dropped, it's Friday! Yay!
Hallelujah! It is fucking Friday.
TGIF! TGIF! Woo!
No, for reals. But yeah, I did used to watch all that teenage TGI programming. I still think the best way to spend a Friday night is indoors doing something. Preferably with people you love and like to hang out with, so.
Yeah.
We got that going on.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Gordo just full on eye rolled at me and he can't even hear anything. And he just looked at me and rolled his eyes and now he's looks like he's gonna go to sleep.
Odd.
Yeah.
Oh, little sleepy face, maybe. It's like when they just randomly wink at you and you're like, did you just... Okay. Was your just one eye just a little twitchy?
Oh, he's going away. He's a foot away from the mic. Bye, Gordo.
Oh.
Yeah. I think I talked about it before our Patreon episode. I don't think it made it in, but for information's sake, or I guess our podcast mascot's sake, Bailey's still a mascot, but she's gone to live with my parents, 'cause Gordo was being a bully and a poopy head a little bit, so...
You told me, I'm not sure if we were on any sort of air
I don't
at
think
the
so.
time.
No. Yeah, he started kind of attacking Bailey, and Bailey was getting so scared that she basically was pooping and peeing everywhere in my house every time she saw him because she was petrified to be near him. So, there's only so many times you can clean your couch. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, that sucks. It's hard to know. There wouldn't be a real good solution to that one, and that's probably the best thing you can do for them is just to maybe separate them and see how that goes. Bailey was okay with just you before, and
yeah, she needs. I think
she's been at your parents' house alone before. Yeah.
Yeah, she was my aunt's cat before my aunt passed away. And then my parents and I, when I was living there, we had her for 10 years. So, yeah. She's back at the parents in a quiet. Yeah, I call her my oldie but a goodie.
Yeah. Old
Yeah.
cats are kind of sweet. They have less
Yeah.
attitude, and I'm just like, aw, I'll be
She just wants
gentle.
to sleep, and Gordo was, well,
I
because
mean,
he's a
I can
rag doll,
relate.
he has a lot of energy. So I think he was too energetic for her, and it was stressing her out too much.
That sounds
Yeah.
counterintuitive. A rag doll having a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Usually,
Well,
usually that's a
he's
descriptor for someone that's like limp.
that's why they have the name, but I guess like it takes a couple years for them to get out of the kitten phase because they're so big. Um yeah. So
Aw.
he'll be basically a kitten like mentally for at least another year and a half, maybe even 2 years. So he just like
Okay.
barely sits down, just wants to play all the time and bites and all this stuff. But he'll figure it out eventually. But Bailey was like 16 and she didn't have time for that. So,
And I mean, personality is certainly a factor too. I can't believe the
yeah.
difference between our last two dogs, and they were both American Akitas and stuff like that. And Sirius was so chill and kind of calm, and like, although somewhat he might not have jumped up as much as Fenrir due to like he had had more issues with his hips as it turned out and things
Oh,
like
okay.
that, but they're kind of prone to hip dysplasia. But yeah, like totally different. Like Fenrir is a barker.
Yes.
He's this is my house and I live
This
here.
is my
And
family.
yes, that's true. That's right. They're very Akita's a very protective family. They're very similar to Huskies. They have a lot of energy. They like to run, shit like that. They gotta have their walks.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he likes his family because even like this isn't the house he grew up in. He was a puppy for a year and a bit at our other apartment, and then we move in here. Well, it was a house we rented, but now we like bought a house. And then our
Yeah.
poor neighbors that had been living here before, but the one neighbor he decides he like has to bark every time the man, like the dad of the
Yeah.
house comes out. We're like, "Why don't you like him? What's wrong with you? He's perfectly
Something.
nice."
Dun dun dun. Maybe he's a
No.
serial killer. No.
He's super nice. He's like one time I had like a flat tire and he like I think, is into cars a bit and said he had, something he could we just got to chatting on the driveway and he said, I can just like pump that up for you. And I was like, what? No way.
Yeah.
You're so nice. So
Dun
I
dun
just don't
dun.
get it.
Serial killer.
Oh dear. Oh no. No. Hopefully not. He's got children, so. But no deep
Anyway.
dives there.
No.
Anonymous. Anonymity.
Yeah, I'll be watching the news, waiting for the story to break. No, and they dig up his yard. No,
We get
and
a
then
lot
the
of dumb
interview, and they're like,
criminals.
"My dog
No.
always barked at him, and now we know why."
He just barks so Even
It's
when
true.
you stayed here without us, and then you know how he barks
Every
whenever
time I
somebody...
stood up,
Yes, yes. Or like
Every
even if
time I
we're
stood
all
up.
here and someone's visiting and we're on one floor of the house and then say we'd all want to go down to the other floor, the basement, and then we move and
Yeah.
then he's like, I wasn't barking at you straight like person, but now I'm barking at you again.
yeah,
You're moving.
he did it. He did it when I was like house sitting for you guys, and I learned pretty quickly that every time he started barking at me, even if it was like 2 a.m. when I was sleeping, because if I like got up, if I moved too much or got up to go to the bathroom, he'd start barking. So I learned pretty quickly that if I opened the sliding back door, let him outside, and then let him
yeah,
back
yeah.
in, he would stop barking at me, even if he was only outside for like 5 seconds.
Oh
So
god, he just
every
loves
time,
to be outside, especially
yeah,
in the
every
middle of
time
the
he
night.
started barking, I just opened the door and I'd like close it, and then he'd like kind of do a loop of the yard and then come back in, and then he'd be fine.
He's checking the
Yeah.
perimeter. Oh
Maybe.
yeah, and then he's like, okay, I know everyone in the house. I know one's outside the house. I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't know,
He
but
had
yeah,
this thing too. Well,
he's
me going
weird.
to the bathroom with the door closed. If I did that, he'd be like, "You suddenly appeared again after you disappeared. I'm gonna bark at you again." And it was like, I was still in the house, buddy. Like,
And it's
yeah, well.
quite a loud bark, unfortunately. Because, like, I don't want a yappy dog, but then I just got a dog with a loud bark that ended up being kind of yappy. So instead it's like,
okay.
woof, woof, woof. You're like, okay, okay. You're so much
Yeah,
cuter when you just go, woo, woo.
Yes, that's cute. And he goes, "Ooh."
We're trying to play.
And he looks sad.
friggin- Yes. Or like we were trying to play, I wanted a game night, but more specifically we're trying to play D&D where you have to like talk a lot. And then like our poor friends come over and then the dog's just like, woof, woof, woof. It's like, no.
You're yelling. Yeah.
Yeah, we're like, we should have socialized you a bit more, or like, I don't know, had more people over, I guess. Oh well. He'll always let us know if someone's there.
Which is good.
I mean, it's true. He's our guard dog and our mascot.
Yeah.
Join Patreon at Fen's Friends level now, and you get to pick an episode.
Yes.
Ooh, that was a perfect segue. Oh my gosh. Well, we're talking about missing planes today, if you guys don't know.
Well, I'm not talking about a missing plane.
Oh, sorry. It's more plane mysteries, I guess. Is that more accurate? Yeah,
Mine
okay.
involves a plane and a mystery, but let's just say it's not the plane that's the mystery.
Oh.
Yeah,
I like when
didn't
it's
really...
more of a surprise. Yeah, so we don't always go in
Yeah.
the same specific direction.
Yeah.
Interesting. Mine is basically a missing plane story, but of course there's twists to it.
Twists and turns.
Oh yeah, and like stuff like that. So, do you want to go first? We never decide first, if you guys haven't noticed.
If Zoom had worked, we could have rock, paper, scissored this.
Oh yeah, sometimes it's like I've heard of people flipping a coin. One pod had a breathalyzer that worked half the time, and whoever was more drunk.
You told
went
me about
first.
that.
Yeah, that was night classy. I thought that was cute. And then they found out, like, they were like, this thing doesn't seem accurate. And then as it turns out, like, those things are not very accurate.
Yeah.
I thought that was funny.
I can go first.
Okay.
So there's some pictures in the drive.
I enjoy this. I enjoy this, because then I get to save my craziness.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there's drive pictures?
Yeah. I have been, basically since we talked about doing this podcast, this has been like my number one. I had to make an excuse to cover this case. And I thought no better than a plane episode.
It's been on your list?
Yeah.
Like from the beginning?
Yeah. I am going to be covering everybody's favorite hijacker, D.B. Cooper.
Oh my god!
Because I love him and he's my favorite.
I had no idea. Holy shit,
Yeah.
that's a classic. Like, and
It's a classic.
it's so good.
I love him. Everything about him I find really funny. Especially after I watched, anybody that's watched the BuzzFeed Unsolved video, they pretty much just spend half an hour talking about him jumping out of a plane and probably just getting, I think they called it like shish kebabbed on a tree, and then him just being like, woo, I got away with it, oh shit, a tree. And they even had t-shirts made or something that had like D.B. Cooper in his little trench coat with like his briefcase, like jumping out of the plane, and then him getting like impaled by a tree, and they like sold the t-shirts. It's pretty great. Yeah.
I do love a good gruesome descriptor, like bodies being shish kebabbed.
Yeah.
Why I gravitate towards like true crime and sometimes disastery stuff.
Yeah.
But it's terrible, but it's so funny and
yeah. So
grim.
since that, he's been like one of my favorite people because it's just like it's so weird. So let's just say I had a whole lot of fun reading like Wikipedia had so much. I read the FBI's website because he's still listed. Apparently the entire case file is available on like the FBI's website, so I like went to the fucking FBI's website and like read the stuff they had about him. It was crazy.
You're following them on social media now and they're following us.
Yeah. Our next promo swap will be with the FBI.
Oh god.
No.
They do follow people though. No. I don't want to be followed in that way.
No.
Abort. Oh my god, this is so exciting. I've like heard the kind of general story and then maybe heard other things that kind of dive deeper, and then when you hear the deeper stuff you're like, oh my god, these conspiracy theories and like shit like that is so fascinating.
I like touch on some of it. It's pretty crazy. Like most of what I have is like everything that happened on the plane. I'm not gonna get into like all the suspects because none of the suspects have ever like properly fit a profile that was ever done up about him. So I didn't really want to talk about them because I felt like it was a lot and it was kind of like
it could probably be its own episode. Yeah. I see that. I can see that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where you go to, like, the case I'm doing, I've seen some people do a 3-part series on. You're like, oh shit, this could be huge. Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Yeah. That's fair. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm not a little disappointed. The suspects stuff can be cool, but, like, no, I totally understand, because it's, like,
but, like, most of them, they'll be like, they'll talk about it and be like, this person claimed they were D.B Cooper, but they were, like, a paratrooper that was, like, all this stuff, and then for D.B Cooper, they say, we'll get into it, but they say, like, it's highly unlikely he actually knew much about, like, parachuting or anything like that for, like, the stuff he actually did during the heist.
I've heard
like
that
hijacking,
as, like, a theory. So, yeah.
So D.B Cooper is the or I guess is like the moniker of the unidentified man who disappeared on November 24th of 1971 from Northwest Orient Airlines number 305. It was a Boeing 727.
I always forget it's like technically the 70s. Like I always think, oh my god, that was like the 60s. It was all black and white, and then it's like, it was almost the 60s, but no, not quite.
Yeah, not quite. So he disappeared after exiting the aircraft mid-flight somewhere between Portland and Seattle. The case starts the day before Thanksgiving in the USA when a middle-aged man carrying a black attaché, or I guess briefcase. Attaché is like a fancier briefcase, I think.
A valise, I like to call it. Yeah. No, I've heard it called many variations.
Yeah.
Fancy briefcase, gotcha.
Yeah. He purchased a one-way ticket, and my research said that this one-way ticket was only $20, which is amazing.
You got a ticket to ride.
Yeah.
And you don't care.
So this one-way ticket for $20 he purchased actually under the name Dan Cooper.
Yes.
Yeah. And he actually paid for it, like, in cash. And he paid for it for Flight 305, which was bound for the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, which was only 30 minutes away. So I think that's why it was like only $20 this flight. Because it's only like 30 minutes away by plane, I guess. Probably a couple.
That shit used to be cheap before they started adding all
Yeah.
those taxes and fees in.
Yeah. I feel like it's probably, I don't know, maybe a 2 or 3 hour drive. Maybe a 30-minute flight. Because I know, like, from here to Fort Mac is like 45 minutes or something.
Yeah. But in Canada, they'll charge you 3 times as much as a flight would in the States for some reason. Because we're great. We have, like, 2 airlines.
Yeah.
Yay.
So,
free healthcare. What about it?
free flight care.
Yeah. No airport improvement fee. Fuck that shit.
Right? Ugh, like you guys aren't making enough money.
The air security fee, that's just to go through everybody's fucking little shampoos.
Yeah, and then make me throw my stuff out.
It's just
anyway.
it's all a scam.
Yeah. So Cooper, he boards the flight, and there's some discrepancy about which seat he's assigned. So most things, I guess, talk about it being an aisle seat. It's either seat 18C or E, and then some say 15D. But whatever, he takes his seat. And once he's seated, and I think before the plane even takes off, he asks for a bourbon and soda, which is like his drink of choice. And I remember when I was like looking it up, because I read an article with the flight attendant that spent the most amount of time with him, and she was talking about that, like, Northwest Orient at the time was one of the only airlines that would serve people drinks before the plane took off. So this might have even...
Yeah, that's not usual.
Yeah.
Because, like, everyone's in the aisle trying to get their stuff in, usually. Well, they are nowadays. Although it doesn't seem efficient. They're just, like, usually getting people on and getting their stuff in, you know, as fast as they can make those sheeple go.
Right?
I love flying. What are you talking about?
One of these days I'm gonna...
What?
I was gonna say one of these days I'm just gonna snap and Google finally why they don't board the plane other than like first class, why they don't board from the back to the front. Because it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't seem like they do usually, do they?
Yeah.
They still just...
No, it's all from the front, and it's like, okay, well, you're like herding the people through, and then they're standing there waiting for everybody to put their bags up, where if you boarded first class, got first class dealt with, and then boarded from the back to the front, then everybody would be walking to the back, putting their stuff away, and they wouldn't be in anybody's way.
You would hope, but I swear it wouldn't matter. People are the slowest when it comes to putting their damn luggage on board. I'm like, I brought one little thing so I could kick it under my seat. Like, do you have to take 3 years to get settled?
Yeah.
I am not the type of girl that takes 3 hours to get ready. Let me tell you.
No. So,
oh dear.
I think anyway for this flight, it was, even though it's like a Boeing 727, which is a fairly big plane, I think they maybe, something said it was only like half full. Because there was only 35 other passengers on board, as well as 6 crew members.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a few empty seats. It could probably fit like 100 or so.
Yeah. I don't know how in demand this, like, 30-minute flight was, but... So...
Yeah.
Witnesses put Cooper in his mid-40s, and... say that he was described as wearing a black business suit with a white shirt and then a black tie. And the flight took off at its scheduled time at 2:50 p.m., which I read on most things. There was one article I read that said something about, like, it took off at, like, 7 p.m., and I was like, I don't know where you got that, but... Yeah.
That one person was right. They were all... the rest were wrong.
The FBI's website's wrong. So, soon after takeoff, Cooper ended up passing flight attendant Florence Schaffner, who's sitting in, like, the jump seat. So, like, those little fold-down seats. And
yeah, they don't get real seats, the poor flight attendants.
So she's sitting in this, I believe, and it's attached to something called the aft stair door, which we'll talk about quite a bit in this case. It's like AFT and then stair door. So it's basically like if you land, like, I guess back before they had, I always think of them as like accordions to like board the plane that they could extend from the airport. They had like stairs that came. Yeah, they had stairs that like came out of the plane and then would put you basically on the tarmac. That's what like an aft stair is.
Okay, which they still do for smaller planes, to be fair.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we did that in Cuba or Mexico. We got off the plane and then walked across the tarmac and like into the airport, and we were like, okay.
Yeah, I love that. That kind of shit is like, get me out of here, fresh air as soon as I get out of the plane. I don't want any more of this stale shit. Yeah.
That's true.
I know.
So Florence Schaffner, she's sitting on a chair like that's attached to this, and Cooper passes her a note. She, I guess at the time, assumed that it contained like a phone number or something, because flight attendants that are female get hit on a lot. So
yeah, it's probably like bartending and all that stuff. I can see that.
So she basically just takes it from him and puts it in her purse or like her bag without even looking at it.
She's like, thanks. Thank you.
Cool, thanks. One thing I read from we'll get to her. Her name's Tina Marsh. Hold on. Oh, no, Tina Mucklow. It's way off, not Marsh. In her, like,
you
interview
can't remember Mucklow? Come on.
Sorry, Tina.
I'm sorry, anyone, Mucklow. That was rude. I won't do it again.
She was talking about that, like, at the time, only recently for, like, the Northwest Orient Airlines, did they even allow, like, female flight attendants to be like married, and they had to be under a certain weight. If they were married, they couldn't wear wedding rings. And then like 5 years before that, they couldn't even be married at all. So it was very, very strict time period we're talking about. Yeah.
That's so gross. Yeah. And
right?
Like I no, and I hear some of that shit continues to this day, regardless of time period. In certain airlines, just hearsay from when I was in the travel industry, but it's just like, ugh, that's so gross.
Yeah. Yeah, so anyway, so she thinks this note basically contains this guy's phone number. So Cooper apparently then leans towards Florence Schaffner and whispers to her, quote, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." It said that the note... Yeah, miss, excuse me. So it said that the note itself was printed, like, very neatly, and the letters were all in, like, capital, and it was using a felt tip pen, and there's no confirmation of this because of, like, the wording of the note, because Cooper asked for, like, it back. So they don't actually know exactly what the note said, but Florence Schaffner recalls that it mentioned the bomb, like specifically, and that it directed her to take a seat right beside Cooper, which she ended up doing.
I mean, we get the gist of it from her, so that's good. But yeah, it's too bad.
At some point, I guess I think it said that she went and talked to the flight, like, crew in the cockpit, like, the pilots and everything, and let them know what was happening. And then she came back and sat beside him again. And this is apparently when he opened like the black attaché case and allowed her to just get a brief glance at the bomb that it contained. It comprised of 8 red cylinders that were split into 2 rows of 4, which she basically assumed was dynamite. And there was a wire that was attached and ran from the cylinders down to a large battery that was also inside the case. And just as quickly as she could look at it, Cooper closed the case and then told her that he had a list of demands. So
she's like, okay, this took
Yeah.
a hard turn.
yeah.
I will continue to try and
Right?
do my best. I mean,
Um,
all
in
your
my
training can't prepare
research-
you for that. Ugh.
Well, I mean, in my research, it did say that at the time, hijackings of airplanes were extremely common.
Yeah, I have heard that actually. Now that you
Yeah.
mention it, it
There
seems
was a
crazy
thing that
now.
said in like the year before this, there was like 35 hijackings because a lot of people, it said a lot of people from like Cuba or like people that were immigrants were trying to get to Cuba. So I guess it was standard at the time for every single airplane, no matter where it was supposed to be flying to have a map to basically like navigate to get to Cuba, because they got hijacked so often and people wanted to go to Cuba so often that they basically trained all the pilots how to fly to Cuba. And
Nice. They're like, we'll
yeah,
just
that
can't fight, like, beat them,
Yeah.
join them. But yeah, because the air security was still lax, too. I had heard
Yeah.
the air, but not specifically that shit.
right?
That's
And they said it
wild.
happened also so often and passengers like weren't scared when it happened, that most of the time like they had been told by like the people owning the companies to always like follow whatever their demands were to avoid any sort of casualties. So what would happen is they would basically, the pilot would just start flying to Cuba. They would land in Cuba. It said they would normally take a brief break and everybody would go get a drink, including the passengers, like somewhere in Cuba. And then they'd all go back on the plane and then fly to where they were supposed to be flying. And like, some people thought it was pretty funny. Like,
After they'd
Yeah.
all just had a shot with the captain.
yeah. So when this
my God.
happens, like, keeping in mind that that's what's going on at the time period, they basically were like, yeah, we're gonna go with his list of demands because that's what the airlines were doing at the time.
Yeah. I mean, he's not threatening, like... He doesn't seem that threatening, actually, having said that, you know what I
No,
mean? It's
he's
not like
kind
the White
of-
House, and he's, like, gonna kill the
Yeah.
president, and he's gonna
No.
bomb 1,000,000 people. He's like, I want some money. I'll let you guys
Yeah.
go. I don't know.
Yeah, so in his demands, he asked for $200,000 in, quote, negotiable American currency, which I'm pretty sure I meant to look up what negotiable meant there. But I don't know. I know in, like, stuff it was
I'm not
talking
sure I've heard
about
that.
right? I had never either. It did say that everything he got, he had like asked for in 20s, like $20 bills, because it'd be easier to spend. And that it wouldn't weigh a whole bunch if it was like smaller bills, and if it was bigger bills, again, it'd be like harder for him to spend. So maybe that's what it means.
He had pre-planned, I thought, and like at least was smart enough to have the forethought to ask for at least, you know, some kind of unmarked bills or something. But yeah,
Yeah,
negotiable is
he
not a
did.
term I feel like I've
Ever
heard
heard. Yeah.
exactly in that context, so I'm a little confused, but
But at the time, so the $200,000 he asked for, I guess in 2021, this I believe is like in U.S. currency, would be about almost 1,340,000 basically. So quite a lot of money.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost 1.5 million,
Yeah.
basically. When you get up to that high, does it really matter?
Yeah.
It's close enough.
Uh, yeah. So he
Wow.
also asked for 4 parachutes. He specified he wanted 2 primary and 2 reserve chutes. As well as he asked for a fuel truck to be on standby at the Seattle airport that they were flying to so that it would be able to refuel the aircraft immediately on arrival, which calculated like supposedly people say he knew that that refueling process should only take 15 minutes because in real life when it took longer, I guess he started complaining about it and was very suspicious about what was going on and why it was taking longer than 15 minutes.
Okay, right. So, like,
Yeah.
he'd like, at least tested it before.
Yeah, or like knew something about these planes, like specifically,
Right.
even possibly like this specific, like Boeing 727. Um,
Insider information.
yeah. So she passed these like list of demands to the pilots and then returned. And when she returned back to talk to Cooper after talking to the pilots, he had now put on a snazzy pair of dark sunglasses. Because he's classy like that. And I love it.
Snazzy.
I
Love
really
it.
love the like pictures of him in the sunglasses, like those composite sketches. I feel like he just looks so hilarious.
Oh, I know I have seen those.
I
Like, I don't
love
know.
it.
I'll look on the drive here if you have them. But yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen with the sunglasses. It's
Yeah.
not the 70s, 80s serial killer like fucking
No.
Coke bottle glasses vibe. Like, these are the cool, more squarish kind of, sunglasses. I feel he looks more like Men in Black than anything. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. So the captain at the time was Captain William A. Scott. So he immediately contacted air traffic control at the Seattle Tacoma airport that they were flying to. And the air traffic control people in turn contacted local and federal authorities, so the FBI. The 35 other passengers on the flight weren't told about the hijacking at all, and they were simply told that their arrival was going to be delayed due to some minor mechanical difficulties, and the crew was told to cooperate fully with any of Cooper's demands.
Well, that's probably in their best interest
Yeah.
to stay alive.
Yeah.
It's dicey
So,
up there.
there's no way to run. Like, you can't escape. And if somebody has a bomb, it literally would just kill
Yeah.
all of you.
I think that is the scary part about being on an airplane is that,
Yeah.
like, it's something you're on every day that's mostly good, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe people say more people die in car crashes, and I don't feel terrified necessarily in my car every day, at least
Yeah.
all day.
But, like, one
But
car crash doesn't typically kill, like, 300 people.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
just, and I know a lot of people have likened it to like you're not in control. That pilot is the only one that's in
Very true.
control, and you're
And
so
you
far
can't
up in
even
the
see.
air.
You
Yeah,
also
there's no
can't see what's in
chance.
front of
If
you.
yeah, if something goes sideways, it's just it's not much chance of it redeeming itself
Yeah.
or rectifying itself.
So Flight 305 ended up circling, I think it's Puget? Is that right?
Yeah, Puget Sound.
Okay. Yeah, Puget Sound for approximately 2 hours. Well, police and the
Wow.
FBI assembled the requested parachutes, the ransom money, and they also mobilized emergency personnel. Maybe if there was like injuries, I don't know. So, flight
Yeah,
attendant,
makes sense.
yeah, Tina Mucklow states that Cooper seemed to know the terrain, because she was kind of like hanging out and talking to him. He at one point like pointed to the outside the window and said, quote, "It looks like Tacoma down there." And he also remarked
Oh.
that the I mean, it's a 30-minute flight, and you know you're flying to Seattle Tacoma Airport. But
Okay, yeah, like
yeah,
what? I was like, all right.
yeah.
What is your point?
Um, but
Bud?
in like, I find this one slightly more interesting. He also remarked that I believe it's pronounced McCord, there's like an Air Force base that would be a 20-minute drive by car away from the Seattle Tacoma Airport, and he like commented that, oh, is that the McCord Air Base? Oh yeah, that's a 20-minute drive from the airport. Like, so he knew that. And I find that more interesting than him saying, oh, it looks like Tacoma down there. Because that's more like a specific thing you would know,
Sorry,
I guess.
yeah, he he claims he recognizes Tacoma and then he said something else about it.
He said that there was the McCord Air Force Base would be like a 20-minute drive by car
Oh,
from the airport. And that it's like a very
weird.
specific thing for like somebody to know that it's the McCord Air Force Base and it is
Yeah,
actually a 20-minute drive by car from the airport.
right, especially unless you worked there.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah, flight attendant Schaffner described Cooper as calm, polite, and well spoken. She says that he wasn't nervous, and Tina Mucklow adds, "quote He seemed rather nice. He was never cruel or nasty. He was thoughtful and calm all the time." And they also said that he was even like reassuring to the crew that nothing would happen to them, and just tried to keep it like a relaxed, I guess, hijacking.
Well, he wasn't super aggressive. I'll give him
No.
that. He was
No.
just kind of like, if you guys kind of well, and a lot of people say if you do what you say, you won't get hurt. But he didn't even get the attention of everyone. He wasn't trying to make a spectacle in any way,
Right?
shape, or form. Yeah, he was just kind of like, I'm very classily just gonna slip you this note, and no, honey, that's not my
Yeah.
phone number.
Right? And
Like,
from like what I was looking up, it basically said that until the people landed on the tarmac, when they land in the Seattle Tacoma airport and they see like the FBI waiting for them as they get off the plane and like hundreds of police and stuff, only at that point did the other like flight passengers realize it wasn't a regular flight. They had no idea for the
wow.
2.5 hours they were in the sky that anything was going on.
It's pretty
Which,
impressive.
can you
It's
imagine being
true.
on that flight and then finding out you just flew in a hijacking and then you have like this legend for like the next 45 years that like you flew with them?
Yeah, that totally
Right?
reminds me of some quote or something. Okay, honestly, to be fair, it's probably Outlander, but it was something like like Claire, the main girl, being like the almost like a flight attendant, and that Jamie, her partner, looks to because if she's not panicking, then why should he be panicking? Kind of thing.
That's fair.
And so if she's still teasing him and being a bitch and being like, "What the hell were you doing getting yourself hurt like this?" He's like, "I know, I'm okay." But if she
Yeah.
stops, he's like, "What the hell? I'm scared." So yeah, I totally see
Now
this
I'm in
like,
trouble.
well, yeah, it's like the flight attendants. Oh yeah, you look to those people. You want them to be like,
Yeah.
"It's all okay, it's fine." And that's why in travel school people would be like, "You want to be a flight attendant?" I'm like, "No, not really. I like to travel, but it doesn't mean I love to fly."
Yeah.
Yeah, no, no thanks.
So,
But it's perfectly safe.
yeah. Cooper apparently then ordered a second bourbon and soda, and he
Oh,
actually paid up his drink tab. He's trying to extort you for $1.3 million, but he's gonna pay his drink tab. And,
good. Keep that
yep,
reputation.
yep. It's said that apparently he attempted to give Tina Mucklow, like, the change, like, told her to keep the change, but I guess she wasn't allowed.
Okay.
And for his list of demands, I guess he also requested for meals to be added for the flight crew that they could eat during the stop at the Seattle-Tacoma airport. So he's like, guys, dinner's on me.
He's very considerate.
Right?
Wow.
And Mucklow and Cooper, Mucklow asked Cooper if he had a grudge, like specifically with Northwest Orient Airlines, and Cooper said, or replied back, quote, "I don't have a grudge against your airline, miss. I just have a grudge." So that's all we really ever find out about any sort of motivation, is it is, I guess, a sort of grudge, but we don't know with who.
It is ominous, and yeah, that's the only definitive thing you ever get, right? The only other thing that would
Yeah.
ever come up would be theories about the different people that had a grudge, or
Yeah.
or could have had a grudge. Yeah, yeah.
So on the ground, the FBI was assembling the $200,000 ransom money. They had to grab it from
Wow.
several banks. And it consisted of 10,000 $20 bills.
Oh
And
my God.
yeah.
Just
The reason
sounds
for
hefty.
this, yeah. The reason for this is because Cooper had specified that he didn't want sequential, like, new bills that they could have, like, traced. He wanted random, like, used money, I guess.
Yeah, non-sequential would make more sense. That's
Yeah.
and like I don't know. Yeah, whenever people say they want like unmarked bills, you know, at least they've thought about different bills that are more traceable than others.
Yeah. So
Although
they did
like
have to,
they all are really. Yeah.
yeah. They did end up having to go to several banks to get these like $10,000 like used $20 bills. But the FBI was a little bit smarter, so they actually provided him with bills where most of the serial numbers started with the letter L, which meant that they were issued by the Federal Reserve Bank in San Francisco. So that's one way they're later able to like track these bills, which ones were given to him specifically.
Oh. Sounds
Yeah.
okay. But you're like, okay, but how do you know it's these ones with L?
Yeah.
Weird.
The reason why they know is because I guess the reason why it took so long, these 2 hours they're literally flying in circles above them, the FBI is taking microfilm photographs of each and every single bill and writing down the serial numbers.
Ah,
Yeah.
so they're like
10,000.
unmarked to the eye.
They're unmarked,
Kinda
except they were
thing.
marking them super fast.
Yeah, they were being
yeah.
recorded.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Can you imagine 10,000 of them? I wonder how many people had to do that, like, in the 2 hours.
Yeah, so that's a lot.
So they also offered Cooper military-issued parachutes that were from the McCord Air Force Base nearby, but he actually ended up refusing these and requested that they provide 4 civilian parachutes that had manual ripcords. According to things they were saying, like, a crazy person would, like, change that, because they'd be significantly harder to steer.
Oh, okay. So if you knew better, you'd prefer the military grade, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
So they also said that they got these like 4 civilian parachutes from a local skydiving school, which was closed at the time, and they had to like end up calling in the boss and like negotiating with them for him to come in and like sell them to them, which I found kind of funny. But anyway,
It's like, oh my God.
yeah.
The things we gotta do.
Right. Another thing that's kind of weird is the fact that he asked for 4. They said that they thought that was kind of strange right off the bat because it kind of implied, without him saying it, that he may try and take a hostage to like parachute with him.
Right.
And
It would
that,
definitely insinuate
yeah.
something of the sort. You're like, I'm
Yeah.
confused now. And maybe that was all it was
So
meant to do, was confuse them.
I think so, because they feel like he did this and like insinuated he may take someone with him so that they wouldn't try like supply like dummy ones or fake ones, in case like the civilian ended up with that one if he did take somebody with him.
Smart.
Yeah. So, I mean, some of it's like well planned out. It just, some of it isn't really.
Yeah.
So, Cooper at that time was then told that all of his demands had finally been met after they'd been like circling for 2 hours. And Flight 305 finally made its landing at the Seattle Tacoma airport. And it was met with very heavy rain. And it was now about an hour after sunset. So I think it's, it's probably between 6:30 and 7, or like sometime around that time, like dusk, kind of.
Okay.
So Cooper requested that pilot Scott taxi the plane to an isolated but brightly lit section of the like tarmac and leave the plane there, and then to close all of the window shades of the windows on the plane so that they like snipers wouldn't be able to shoot in, because they wouldn't be able to see in the plane at all.
Okay.
And Northwest Orient's operation manager, Al Lee, he ended up approaching the plane in civilian clothes, like personally. It said that he changed into civilian clothes because his like operations manager like uniform, I guess, could have been mistaken for like a police uniform. So they wanted it to be more casual, and he ended up being the one to give the cash like to Cooper, as well as like went up and down the aft stairs, I believe, to like take him the parachutes and everything. And he handed these to Mucklow. And once Cooper received the cash and parachutes, he like verified everything. And then Cooper directed all of the passengers, including the flight attendant Schaffner, and senior flight attendant Alice Hancock that was on the plane, to leave the plane at that time, along with the passengers. So
Which
you
was
released...
Nice.
Yeah. So you released all the passengers and half of the crew. So,
As much as he probably felt he could do.
yeah. The plane was refueled after some delays, which he was upset about. Apparently it took like multiple trucks. I don't really understand what caused the delay, but during this time Cooper did end up refusing a face-to-face meeting that was attempted with like an FAA official, who basically was just trying to tell him like, you're going to be arrested, you'll be sent like to prison your whole life, like that kind of stuff. But he refused this meeting.
He's like, nothing you can do. He's like,
Yeah.
It's too far now. But at the same time, he was kind of wrong.
Yeah. So Cooper became impatient about the time that the refueling was taking, and he sent a note to the crew in the cockpit saying, apparently, quote, "Let's get this show on the road." It just seems so crazy.
I know, I wonder if that was where that first got, like, its real big legs, that saying, or if that was just something people said quite a bit before then. Yeah, you still hear it today.
Yeah. So Cooper detailed a new flight plan for the crew. He requested that they fly southeast towards Mexico City, and he requested a minimum airspeed that the plane would be able to do without stalling, which would be approximately 100 knots or 185 kilometers an hour or 115 miles per hour. So it's crazy. It would be like so slow for a plane.
It's like, it's the opposite of speed.
Yeah.
It's instead of speed 2 cruise control, which got slower. It's speed 3 like hot air balloon.
Yeah. Oh my god. That's
I
good.
don't know.
He also requested that they fly no higher than 10,000 feet. And he requested, at the time, that the landing gear, so like the wheel, remain down. And he asked that the wing flaps be lowered to 15 degrees, which we'll talk about later because that's a very specific number. And that the cabin of the plane not be pressurized. So those are very specific things for somebody to request.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something you don't necessarily know just because you've been a passenger on a plane.
No. So, First Officer William J. Ratazak? Sure. Told Cooper at the flight speed that there would be a required second refueling stop in order for them to reach Mexico. So Cooper, along with the flight crew, worked together and decided that they would stop at the Reno Tahoe airport to make this second refueling stop.
Okay, makes sense. Pretty close by.
Cooper then finally randomly requested that the plane take off with the rear exit door open and the aft stair remain extended. They contacted Northwest's home office and they declined, saying it would be unsafe for them to take off with the aft stairs down. And yeah, right? Just stairs jutting out the back of this plane.
They're well,
yeah.
How about no?
Yeah, right? When you're gonna try and climb to reach altitude, would it not be just scraping across the ground?
Yeah, and there's obviously it's not just him in there. They're you've let off a lot of the people, but you're still endangering these other people.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So because of this, Cooper ended up compromising and say that once they were airborne, he would lower the stairs. And at this time, he asked the remaining flight attendant, Tina Mucklow, to show him how to operate the stairs, which she did. The airplane took off again at approximately 7:40 p.m. with Cooper and a crew of Tina Mucklow, Captain Scott, the first officer Radazak, as well as a flight engineer, Harold E. Anderson. And just behind the plane, above it and below it, out of Cooper's view, flew two F-106 fighter aircraft from the McCord, Air Force Base. So they were following it. Some sources say they had to bail partway through. So I don't know how long they were there for, but he wasn't aware of them, I guess. And for part of the journey, there was a Lockheed T-33 trainer that was also following them, but this one had to turn around because it started running low on fuel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They're just we're running out of gas.
Yeah, sorry guys. It also said that maybe the fighter aircraft had to turn around because this was too slow of a speed for them to be able to fly. They couldn't handle it because it was just too slow. Even the plane was okay because it was the absolute minimum that this specific plane could go, but the fighter jets just couldn't do it.
I could see that. You do, go
Brutal.
too slow on a bicycle. It just
right.
stops.
I was just gonna say on a bike and you'll fall over. Yeah. Cooper requested that Mucklow join the rest of the crew in the cockpit and that she stay there with the curtain closed. So this is before the time of doors. They just have a curtain.
Well, between the cockpit and the rest, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, it probably depends on the plane. But anyway, that's semantics. I digress. Sorry.
So at approximately 8 p.m., about 20 minutes after the takeoff, a warning light flashed in the cockpit and indicated that the aft stairs had been activated and I guess lowered. The pilots used the cabin intercom system to ask if Cooper needed any assistance. And Cooper replied using the cabin phone, so he had to, like, pick it up. And he replied just with, like, a short no. And this is the last known message heard ever from Cooper. The crew felt a change in cabin air pressure and determined that the aft door had now been opened. 13 minutes later, the aircraft's tail section made a sudden upward motion that forced the pilot to bring the plane back to level. And so I assume that's like the stairs coming down or something.
Because they noticed a change, but like before that, you said?
Yeah, they noticed a change in, like, the cabin air pressure, so I'd say that's probably, like, the door, and then now the stairs have been put down, and that caused, like, the back of the plane to go up, maybe from, like, a bounce or something of the stairs going down, yeah.
Right, yeah, just
I don't know planes, but, but they had to correct,
sense.
I guess it.
And he wasn't, like, from all, intents and purposes, it doesn't look like he was ever trying to bring down the plane at that point.
No.
He wasn't trying to cause a loss of life. Yeah.
No.
I think he was trying to, like, exit as smoothly as possible.
Yeah.
As much as one can do so in midair.
Yeah, so 8:13, it makes, like, a sudden move up, and then the plane lands at the Reno Tahoe airport sometime between 10 and 11:30. And the air stairs are still down, because I don't think they can bring them, I don't know if they can bring them back up. And upon landing, the crew informed that the FBI, the state troopers, sheriff's deputies, and Reno police that had gathered that Cooper was no longer on board. And these guys all, like, approached the plane very cautiously because they didn't know if the bomb was still on board. So they did sweep the whole plane and determined that the bomb was also gone along with Cooper. And they searched it for about 30 minutes.
That's good.
One thing that did say, like, because we don't know exactly what time he left the plane, because, I mean, the sudden motion of the back of the plane was at 8:13, and then they say, I don't know why we don't have a more accurate time of when it lands. It just says between 10 and 11:30 p.m. It landed again.
Okay.
Which is quite a large window, but I guess it said that in that time nobody wanted to open the curtain in case he was still there. So they all just stayed in the cockpit. So
I don't know. That is a little strange, hey?
Yeah,
although,
right?
I guess maybe, yeah, exactly. They were just possibly hesitant. Maybe it's just one hijacking too many. You're just like, fuck that. You go open the curtain.
Right?
Yeah. Hard
So
to say.
the FBI ends up recovering 66 unidentified latent fingerprints that are inside the plane. So I assume they, like, ruled out maybe the other passengers and, like, crew.
Yeah, I'm sure they tried.
Yeah, along with recovering, and this is my favorite thing in the case, one of my favorite things in the entire case. Along with all these latent fingerprints, they uncover Cooper's black tie, which is a clip-on tie from J.C. Penney. It's, like, my favorite detail in this entire case. Like, dude hijacks a plane wearing a clip-on tie from J.C. Penney. Classy.
Fake it till you make it, baby.
Yeah. Just him and his little sunglasses and his freaking clip-on tie.
Oh
So
my
cute.
god.
He also left behind a mother of pearl tie clip. I don't have any pictures of that, but there is pictures of the, like, actual tie he wore. I don't think
Mother
actually,
Pearl
let me
sounds
look.
pretty.
Oh, it does have a tie clip on it. I guess it looks like a circle. It basically looks gold. Sorry, it is in the picture.
Oh, okay.
He left behind 2 of the 4 requested parachutes, as well as 8 filter-tipped... I meant to look this up. It's some brand of cigarette. But they're filter tipped like Raleigh. I don't know. Raleigh. Raleigh. I don't know. Some brand.
Like, well, Raleigh, if you're gonna say it like the
Raleigh.
capital of
Oh, okay.
North Carolina. Damn it, North Carolina.
Something. Raleigh. We'll say Raleigh then.
Raleigh. I was just congratulating myself because I thought I remembered Dirk the Penguin's girlfriend's name, and I did. It's Peaches.
I knew it was.
That's where my brain was.
I knew it was something equally cute.
I thought of it the other day, and then as we're talking, I'm like, your cases. I am so sorry.
Well, and if you don't know what we're talking about, join Patreon. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh no. Yeah, we did the thing. Well, that's when it was part of our quiz.
Yeah. So he has like these 8 filter tipped Raleigh cigarette butts, and sometime after the hijacking, these cigarette butts were actually lost, so they're no longer in like any form of evidence cataloged.
Damn.
Yeah. So one of the 2 remaining parachutes had been opened and actually kind of cut apart, and the 2 like shroud lines were actually cut from the canopy, and it said that he used this possibly to tie like the money bag closed and stuff. I don't really get that. Other pictures I've seen like hypothesize, like I think the BuzzFeed Unsolved one said that or the pictures are of like the money bags like tied to his foot so that he didn't have to hold it while he was parachuting. So he like tied it to his ankle or something.
That could have been an idea.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, he did seem to have a lot of forethought into it. Yeah, I can't remember if I ever heard if anyone had like solid theories as to how he kept hold of all of it, because no one can say if he really did, right? If he, he was never found with the money.
I think I did run across an article of like a guy who's like a former paratrooper who's been trying to do it for like 20 years, like recreate it or something, but he's been like debunked basically by, I think it's like the FBI and a bunch of other people saying like his like simulations he's doing aren't like accurate, that he's trying to do it based on like a paratrooper, and it's not like confirmed that Cooper was a paratrooper based on like some of the stuff he did. Yeah,
oh my goodness.
Where he's trying to do
all
it like
that
too
to say,
professionally.
we still don't know, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, who is there to sit? Why are they taking the time to argue with the guy that's trying to solve it? Are they just like pissed off because they're like, we don't want someone else to say that they solved it because we want, it's ours. It's like,
I don't know. I kind of go back and forth because we'll get to it, but there's still some like clues and like evidence as to why it would.
They're always hiding something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway.
FBI, don't trust them.
The investigators ended up interviewing a bunch of eyewitnesses who had contact with Cooper, and they, from this, created multiple composite sketches that were made and distributed. So I believe that's like the black and white like sketches that they had that's on like a wanted flyer with him wearing and not wearing those snazzy sunglasses.
Was that?
Local police and FBI. It's not in any particular order. It's all like jumbled together, but it doesn't really matter for this one.
Oh, I don't think I opened it.
No.
I'm terrible.
Local police and FBI began questioning suspects immediately, and the case basically went in the wrong direction, as at the time they interviewed a man who was named D.B Cooper. And
oh no, poor guy.
Yeah, because he was interviewed because he had a minor police record, and I think his first name may have been Dan, but he went by D.B Cooper. And
Oh
this
no.
questioning was released to the media, because it was basically the only person that they confirmed that the police talked to right away. And the I have written the hijacker of Flight 305 went from Dan Cooper to D.B Cooper overnight and has basically stayed that way for 45 years.
That's so crazy.
But he
With a
purchased,
pen stroke, as they say.
yeah, and it was an error, and then a whole bunch of other newspaper articles started putting it as DB Cooper, but he did purchase the airline ticket, which I don't have a picture of, but the FBI has released, I guess they said in a thing I read, they released a picture of it, and it does say, I guess, Dan Cooper. He never went by DB Cooper.
Yeah, I thought I had heard it was just a typo or something, which is just so funny how things turn on a dime, as they say.
DB Cooper is just a guy that they interviewed as a possible suspect. Which is so sucky.
Oh.
Yeah, he's not even related, attached to the case anymore, but he changed the suspect's name basically from Dan Cooper to DB Cooper.
But they had a note from the suspect too, right? With the Cooper?
That I tried looking into. They've never confirmed anything. All these mysterious letters they say that the FBI started receiving or something years later, it was never confirmed.
Oh, cuz then I guess I just meant how do they know that it's where did they get the D.B. Cooper from initially then?
It was just a suspect they interviewed. He just had
oh, I thought he
something...
wrote in as D.B.
No.
Cooper or Dan Cooper or something. Okay.
No, he's just somebody they interviewed. Really
weird.
Yeah. So police attempted to determine a possible landing spot to try and start their investigation. They based it on the flight speed at the time and how long Cooper may have stayed in some sort of free fall before he pulled the ripcord to deploy the parachute. And it said that at the time, neither of the F-106 was trailing the plane ever saw anything, anything exiting the aircraft for the time that they were following it, because there's extremely limited visibility due to the rain. There was a recreation completed using a 200-pound sled that they were able to use to cause the upward motion of the tail section in deploying the stairs and stuff, as well as the cabin air pressure change that the crew described. And its landing also helped police narrow down a possible search area near Mount St. Helens. Yeah. So
that's
search
in Washington
efforts.
State, right?
I think so, yeah. They do. So. They talk about Washington a few times.
Okay. I think so.
Search efforts were focused through the wilderness as well as door to door. And along with a thorough search of a reservoir that was nearby. However, there was no confirmed traces of Cooper or confirmation of any of the equipment believed to have left the aircraft with him. So the bomb, the money, him and his clothes, what have you. Parachutes. Right. They've found bits and pieces of stuff, but they've never actually confirmed it's from this plane. Because you find a lot of weird shit in the forest. Yeah.
Why isn't there just plane parts everywhere? That's my question. And where does all the poop and pee go when we're on the airplane?
The blue ice or whatever falling into people's houses.
I just don't, I don't get it. Then there was that show, we watched the Dead Like Me. I don't think you watched it, but she, basically the main character was killed by a toilet seat that fell out of a falling aircraft or something.
Oh my god.
It was great. It's not glamorous at all.
No. So a month after the hijacking, the FBI distributed the list of the ransom bill serial numbers, and they sent these at the time, like a month after, to financial institutions, casinos, racetracks, and any other businesses that handled any sort of large cash transactions, and they distributed this around the world. And later on, they also
Wow.
released the full list of serial numbers to the public, along with posting various different amounts of rewards for any of the recovered bills. However, this ended up just leading to a bunch of false reports. People saying they were D.B Cooper because they wanted rewards. People sending in, like, bills that the serial numbers were a couple digits off and trying to claim reward money.
Yeah, isn't that always the case?
Yeah.
That's too bad.
A later analysis of the wind speeds at the time determined that the original landing zone that was believed to be where he landed might actually be off as much as 80 degrees. So I guess that's significant. Doesn't really
Oh.
mean anything to me. But a new landing zone was created in the area around a drainage of the Washougal River, and that was then searched. But this was mainly done by private individuals, not really by the police for some reason. And no evidence was ever found, as any evidence that may have existed could have been destroyed in the eruption of Mount St. Helens in 1980. So,
Oh,
yeah.
you know why it sounds familiar? I have a ring that's made of helenite.
Mm.
So I think it was due to that damn eruption. We saw it like advertised, and I was like,
Oh.
"Oh, that's a pretty cute green ring." And then Pat was like, "Well, do you like it? 'Cause oh, okay, I'll buy it for you." And I was like, "Well, it's all right, yeah." And it's like it's green. It's very green, like
That's cool.
bright green. You'd almost think it was like an emerald or something, but maybe a little bit lighter, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, like
Cool.
not as dark of a green. Yeah. Weird. Tangential connection.
Yeah.
Helenite.
In November of 1987, in November of 1978, there was a place card that had like the instructions for lowering the AFT or aft stairs for a 727 Boeing plane. And this was found in the forest by a deer hunter that was within the plane's basic flight plan. Obviously, they can't confirm if this came from the plane directly. But
Yeah, no
that was
serial
found.
number.
Yeah. Flight attendants Schaffner and Mucklow, who spent the most time with Cooper, were interviewed on the same night as the hijacking in actually like separate cities. Remember, because Schaffner was like let go, and Mucklow like continued flying with him, and they did give nearly identical descriptions. There's like a full one on the FBI's like posting, but basically they say he was around 5'10", mid-40s, about 180 pounds. He had close-set, piercing brown eyes and swarthy skin. I don't even want to Google what that means.
Like,
Swarthy
wait.
skin.
Yeah, like Swarthy.
Yeah. I'm like, what does that
Jesus
mean?
Christ.
Swarthy
I
skin?
don't know. It's
I have
something
no
they
idea,
use
but I'm afraid to
that's
Google
like,
it.
I feel like I've only heard it in like
Pirates.
serious, cheesy, like almost romance style, like
Oh.
swashbuckling pirates and their swarthy
Yeah.
skin. Like it's a
Ew.
very specific
Yeah.
adjective. I don't know. Interesting
That's why I don't want to
choice of
Google it.
words. Yeah,
Yeah, right?
Careful what you Google, kids. No.
Yeah. So, for basically 10 years after the disappearance of Cooper, nearly 10 years after the disappearance of Cooper, a small portion of money was found along the banks of the Columbia
Yeah.
River in
Right,
1980.
okay, yes.
by
I
an
think I've heard
8-year-old.
that.
Yeah, Brian Ingram. It totaled around $5,800, and the serial numbers of those
Wow.
bills did actually match those given to Cooper. So this is legit.
Oh yeah, because
Um,
they recorded the
yeah,
numbers.
the bills were in extremely poor condition. There's like pictures on the FBI's website. They basically look like
Yes.
ovals. They're like half disintegrated. Um,
I mean,
yeah.
when you wash a Kleenex in your pocket,
Yeah,
this is
for
almost
10
what it
years.
looks. Yeah, yeah, or even okay, because sometimes Pat will have paper towel as his Kleenex in his pocket. This is more like that because it held up a little
Yeah.
bit better than like Kleenex, but it's still almost in like ragged little pieces.
Yeah.
Aw.
The bills were in poor condition due to exposure of the elements, but they were still, they aren't in the pictures, but they were still apparently in their rubber bands that they had given to them in Cooper in like stacks.
Wow.
Apparently in the stacks they found, um, what would it have been? There was stacks of like 100 bills each or something, and they were 20 like dollar bills. But two out of however many stacks they found only had 90 bills instead of 100 or something, and they didn't really know why. But
That's
it's
odd, but
interesting that they were found in the rubber bands because finding the bills at all led people to believe that Cooper like landed in this area close to the water. But since the
sure.
rubber bands were intact and hadn't disintegrated in the nearly 10 years, it's believed that the money had actually not been in the water or in the water
Yeah.
for the full 10 years, and instead that it may have washed up within a few years.
I can see that.
Yeah, because the rubber bands, obviously, like 10 years, they're probably going to disintegrate, but in 10 years, that money would probably be completely gone.
10 months friggin'
Yeah.
well, I guess I don't know about in water, but like they dry up the elastic bands sometimes before you use them. They
Yeah.
could just be like boo. But
Yeah.
that's so funny, and I know I've talked about um Stephen King and Mr. Mercedes on here before. This reminds me of the plot line of like the second one, Finders Keepers, where like, yeah, a bunch of money gets buried and it's actually near a river and shit like that. And so it's, yeah, it's so funny. It's just like, I wonder if he was influenced, by this stuff.
Maybe.
Probably. I mean, he's been writing
Um,
forever, goddammit. This is
yeah.
1970s, totally.
So the recovered bills were divided between Brian Ingram and Northwest Orient's insurer because they had actually basically put already, because it was like 9 years, they had put through an insurance claim for the hijacking, and they had received out of the like $200,000 ransom, they had received $180,000 as a reimbursement. So now they had gotten
Wow.
this like $5,800 recovered, so they split that, and Northwest Orient like gave their half to the insurer, and Brian Ingram, the 8-year-old, got to keep his half.
Aww. Nice.
Yeah, which is pretty cute. So this was in 1986, and in 2008, so not that long ago and quite a long time after, Ingram actually sold 15 of his bills at an auction and received $37,000. And the money that he
Wow.
recovered, yeah, so that's pretty cool. He kept some of it. Uh, the money that he recovered at the beach that day is the only confirmed physical evidence that has ever been recovered from outside of the aircraft. Because, like, inside they found, like, Cooper's tie and stuff like that. But this is the only thing that ever made it outside of the aircraft that's been recovered.
Okay.
Yeah. So, in 2007, the FBI announced that they had actually gotten a partial DNA profile from the black clip-on tie worn by Cooper. But they said that there was no way to prove that this DNA was from Cooper. himself because the tie contained 2 small along with 1 large DNA sample, so it was like 3 separate DNA samples.
Okay.
Yeah. They also released a file at this time of unreleased evidence that included Cooper's 1971 plane ticket. There was, as well as previously unseen composite sketches and a fact sheet with like details and facts that they knew about Cooper. And they like kind of re-asked the public to help with any sort of positive identification that could have been made. They disclosed, and they hadn't told the public this before, but they told them at this time that Cooper had chosen the older of the 2 primary parachutes that had been given to him, and from the 2 reserve chutes, he had actually chosen to take the dummy chute with him that had been sewn shut and is normally used for classroom demonstrations. So
that doesn't look great.
No, he took with him a useless parachute and an older one when he was given like newer ones, which leads them to believe like anybody that's a seasoned like parachuter even would be able to recognize an old parachute from a new one and a dummy one from not, because they're sewn shut.
Yeah, that does seem logical. I'll give you that. Yeah.
Obviously, unless he's doing it intentionally to throw you off the scent, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I can't remember if I've heard other theories into that room, but yeah, when you say it like that, it's like it doesn't really make sense why you would do it that way.
So the FBI advised at that time that an experienced skydiver would have known the differences in these chutes, like the reserve being a dummy, and that's the one he took that was sewn shut, as well as an old one and a new one, and they obviously wouldn't have turned down a military one that was easier to steer. He also had cut apart a fully functional parachute and used the cords from that to, they say, like, secure the money bag.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So a group of like investigators called citizen sleuths, which is part of like a university group. There's some like, they're not like regular people, they're like pretty up there in like stuff they know, but they are still like just a random like grouping of people that are doing this for fun. But they later became known as the Cooper Research Team. They were able to use GPS and satellite imagery to trace possible landing zones, but they uncovered no new leads. But they were able to examine Cooper's tie with an electron microscope, and this is how we found out about the traces of lycopodium spores, which are from pharmaceutical products. I'm not sure like how really what that means, along with trace elements of bismuth and aluminum.
Oh, I've heard of those. Bismuth, aluminum, sure. Yep.
And then in 2011, the same team announced that pure titanium had been found on the tie. And at that time, in the 1970s, pure titanium's use was limited to metal fabrication or production facilities, as well as some chemical companies. And in 2017, they re-examined the tie and reported that cerium and strontium sulfide were found on the tie. And in the 1970s, this was used as part of Boeing's supersonic transport development project, along with basically only one other use in the entire world. And this led them to believe that Cooper may have actually held a grudge against Boeing and may have been a Boeing employee working on this supersonic transport development project, and that he targeted the Boeing 727 plane for the hijacking as a result. So he didn't have a thing against the airline, but maybe it was actually the plane specifically.
Yeah, that sounds
or like
familiar,
Boeing
actually.
as a company.
Right. They're a huge company in
Yeah.
aviation. Yeah.
And in 2020, an analysis of the diatoms, which you find out a lot about in true crime, they're like the little bacteria that live in water. They were actually found on the bills, and in 2020, they determined that these diatoms were from the springtime, and this actually placed the date of the bills entering the water as several months after the hijacking. Because the
Really?
hijacking took place, I think, in like August.
Okay. Yeah, that's a hot time.
Yeah. So it's like 9 months later.
Holy shit. That's
Yeah.
specific.
The FBI's best guess is that Cooper did not survive the jump due to the heavy rain and dangerous conditions at the time for skydiving, as well as the lack of proper equipment, having to land in the wilderness without planning a specific spot. And they reference like the fact that he worked with the flight crew to talk about this refueling spot and everything like that, and that he wasn't like in the cockpit like making sure they were flying exactly where they should have been.
Right.
As well as the fact that the rest of the ransom money, other than this like $5,000, was never turned up, which leads them to believe it was never actually spent.
So
Which
he
I don't
never
know.
retrieved it, maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe he didn't feel safe enough to spend it.
I wouldn't. Not like the FBI on you.
Yeah, exactly.
So they think possible motivation is he may have been like in dire need of urgent money, or possibly he was just a thrill seeker who wanted to prove that this hijacking could be done. Which I mean, he did prove it. And at the time they were cooperative with people, like as a rule. So I mean, it's a good time if you're gonna hijack a plane to have done it, I guess.
Who's to say they're mutually exclusive? Yeah, you couldn't
Yeah.
have one without the other.
Yeah. They say that he possibly got the alias Dan Cooper, and I like this. This is kind of cute. He may have gotten the alias Dan Cooper from a popular French language Belgian comic series that featured a hero named Dan Cooper, who was a Royal
really?
Canadian. Yeah, I had never heard this before.
Nope.
So in this like comic book or comic series, Dan Cooper is a Royal Canadian Air Force test pilot who goes on adventures and parachutes like multiple times. However, the comics were never translated into English or even imported into the US. So they believe if he possibly got his alias from this, he may have encountered them while in Europe. And they say if he did have some sort of military background, he may have been stationed in Europe and read these things about Dan Cooper, the Royal Canadian Air Force test pilot who parachutes and goes on cool adventures.
Yeah, Canadian. They thought he encountered him
Yeah.
in Europe? Okay.
Yeah, well, like French Canadian, but it's from Belgium, but they're in French. French Canadian. I don't know. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Evidence suggested that Cooper was knowledgeable about the flying technique, the aircraft, and the local terrain. He demanded 4 parachutes to force the assumption that he might compel one or more hostages to jump with him, thus ensuring he would not be deliberately supplied with the sabotage like equipment. I have like a couple things directly from Wikipedia. I think these are mostly from like people that work with the FBI and their theory. It says, quote, Cooper chose the 727-100 aircraft because it was ideal for bailout escape, owing not only to its aft stair, but also to the high aftward placement of all 3 engines, which allowed a reasonably safe jump despite the proximity of the engine exhaust. The 727 had a single point fueling capability, a then recent innovation that allowed all tanks to be refueled rapidly through a single fuel port. It also had the ability, unusual for a commercial jet airliner, to remain in slow, low-altitude flight without stalling. Cooper knew how to control its airspeed and altitude without entering the cockpit, where he could have been overpowered by the 3 pilots. In addition, Cooper was familiar with important details such as the appropriate flap setting to 15 degrees, which was unique to that specific aircraft, and the typical refueling time. He knew that the air stair could be lowered during flight, a fact that was never disclosed to civilian flight crews. And he knew that. Since there was no situation on a passenger flight that would make this lowering necessary, they didn't disclose it, and that its operation by a single switch in the rear of the cabin could not be overridden from the cockpit. He also may have known that the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, was at the time using 727s to drop agents and supplies behind enemy lines during the Vietnam War. I don't know why that's thrown in there.
Why not? Espionage.
Yeah. So it seems like he knew a lot about the plane. But then they also, on the flip side, talk about the fact that they don't think he was in the Air Force. They think he was in the Air Force, but not a paratrooper.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, sure. So, we don't know. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, it says this, quote, assuming that Cooper was not a paratrooper, but was an Air Force veteran, Special Agent Larry Carr, who led the Cooper investigation team from 2006 until its dissolution in 2016, suggested the possibility that he was an aircraft cargo loader. Such an assignment would have given him knowledge and experience in the aviation field, and loaders, because they throw cargo out of flying aircraft, wear emergency parachutes and receive rudimentary jump training. Such training would have given Cooper a working knowledge of parachutes, but, quote, not necessarily sufficient knowledge to survive the jump he made. The FBI was skeptical of Cooper's odds of survival, concluding that he lacked crucial skydiving skills and experience. Quote, we originally thought Cooper was an experienced jumper, perhaps even a paratrooper. We concluded after a few years this was simply not true. No experienced parachutist, that's a terrible word, would have jumped in the pitch black night. Yeah, ufologist, parachutist. So no experienced parachutist would have jumped in the pitch black night, in the rain, with 172-mile-an-hour wind in his face, wearing loafers and a trench coat. It was simply too risky. He also missed that his reserve parachute...
Well, not for fun.
No. For $1.3 million.
Yeah.
It was too risky. Yeah. He also missed that his reserve parachute was only for training and had been sewn shut, something a skilled skydiver would have checked. Cooper also failed to bring or request a helmet, jumped with a non-functional parachute with a probable 15-degree Fahrenheit or minus 9 degrees Celsius wind at 10,000 feet in November over Washington State without proper protection against the extreme wind chill. I mean, fair.
He's tough.
Yeah, he's fucking Dan Cooper. The FBI kept an active investigation into Cooper, running for 45 years, as the charges for air piracy that were originally filed in 1976 still stand today. During which time...
God, no statute of limitations?
Nope. No, they actually,
but there is on things like rape and murder and stuff, but this guy, we better prosecute him if he's not already dead, which he probably already is.
Yeah, they actually, re-reviewed the air piracy things and were like, yeah, we don't really have a statute of limitations, so I guess this goes forever.
Oh my god.
So, in this 45 years, during which time they processed more than 1,000, serious suspects, However, his true identity and fate after exiting the aircraft remain unknown. The FBI suspended their active investigation of Cooper in July of 2016 so that they could better redirect resources to issues of higher and more urgent priority. Get it?
It's not urgent? What?
Right? Just the last little bit. The hijacking played a role in changes for commercial aviation, as well as airport security, as well as inspired...
Those fees. I told you.
Yeah. Not really. Not for Cooper, at least. He also inspired a multitude of copycats, including one guy who, 6 months after Cooper, successfully did hijack a plane basically the exact same way, but he was later, arrested. But then he broke out of prison. It was a whole thing. Yeah, the copycat was arrested, and then he broke out of prison. It was a whole thing. It was kind of cool.
Okay.
Yeah, he is a suspect. A lot of people do think he actually is Cooper and was trying to recreate his escape, but the two, all the flight crew, the Mucklow and Schaffner were shown his picture and they're yeah, no, he looks nothing like him.
Right.
Yeah. So along with inspiring a bunch of copycats, metal detectors and searches did become standard at airports. Paying for same-day flights in cash now raised questions, and aircrafts... Yeah. Aircrafts were actually redesigned with something called the Cooper vane that actually prevented the aft stairs from being lowered well in mid-flight. So it's actually named after him. Yeah.
Holy shit. That's the Mansfield bars that was named after James Mansfield in the Hollywood.
I think of that every time I pull up behind a big, semi, and I'm just
I see the bars.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And because of these things, by 1973, airplane hijacking slowed as these new security features kind of dissuaded any hijackers that were trying to do it just for money. It became quite difficult. There is actually something called a D.B Cooper Con that's hosted in Portland, and it's basically a Comic-Con where a bunch of people obsessed with D.B Cooper go to Portland. They try and investigate him. They do searches of the forest. It's a whole thing. They attract hundreds of curious people.
Weird.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, Portland's weird. The West Coast, the Pacific Northwest, we're all kind of a little weird here.
Last bit, the FBI plans to keep their 66-volume case file over the 45-year investigation. They plan to keep it for historical purposes in documentation at the FBI headquarters, as well as online on the FBI's website. All evidence is open to the public. And my last thing is just that this hijacking remains the only unsolved case of air piracy in commercial aviation history.
That's crazy, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty famous, but
yeah,
to say you're the only something of anything is insane.
Fucking Dan Cooper.
Air piracy. It's oh yeah, no big deal. No big deal.
Yeah, he's the only one that hijacked a plane, I guess, and that wasn't, caught.
And,
ever.
When I have listened to anything also with it, you did a great job, by the way.
Thank you. I had so much fun.
It's crazy.
I probably read
big one.
60 pages of information being this is amazing.
Oh, totally. Yeah, there's probably entire, it's one of those ones where you're oh god, there's books on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
and we didn't even get to the suspects.
Yes.
Which I'm not getting into because that's a whole another thing.
No, we could, if people want it, we'll do a Patreon,
Yeah, it's quite a bit, but again, they all got written off because either their descriptions didn't match or they were paratroopers or they just believed that they had too much knowledge or didn't have enough knowledge to have actually committed it. So,
Oh, well,
yeah.
like I said, I haven't researched it myself, but the few things I'd listened to, I'd heard some wild suspects that sounded really cool. Like, one was a woman and stuff, and I thought that was
Yeah.
really neat. But like I said, I
Um,
haven't researched it, like, in depth or anything, so I couldn't speak, but like, some of the stuff could be really convincing. You're like, okay.
the one I think you're talking about, their name was Deborah, and they were transgender and had gotten a sex change to a
Deborah.
woman.
Yes.
And they went undercover as Dan Cooper and decided to hijack
Okay.
the plane as revenge for the fact that they were basically given too much hassle by the government in the fact that they were transgender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like the one. I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, exactly. All of the friggin' suspect stories have a wild backstory like that. It's just like, holy
Yeah.
shit.
But
Wow.
yeah, let us know
That
if you
was
want me to
amazing.
cover the suspects in a thing. Yeah, we'll keep it for Patreon then if people want it or whatever. But
Such a
yeah,
good topic.
I
love
literally
it.
like this was like the second thing I ever wrote down about the podcast was like literally D.B Cooper. It was like, yes, and I've waited a
Yay!
year. Been like waiting for an episode like topic where I could just like talk about D.B Cooper.
And then I was like, I have been wanting to do, like, not that you hadn't suggested planes or anything before that, but I was just like, that's something I feel like I've wanted to do for a while. I'm like, there's
Yeah.
missing planes, there's all sort of freaky flight shit.
I went between
Wow.
this and like Amelia Earhart like disappearing, but
That's a good
um
one.
yeah,
I had two that I had a hard time deciding between as well.
yeah.
I will admit, where I was like, oh, they're so good.
Even though it's a supernatural kind of episode, I brought the true crime.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, but we had fun because it's DB Cooper. But we'll be right back for some actual plane mysteries that involve the plane.
Quickies. Hi, we're back. Time for part two.
Yeah, more plane mysteries.
Yep, more plane mysteries. There's a few planes in this one, actually. Even though it's just called sometimes the mystery of Flight 19.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I had heard of it on like one thing at least before looking into it, and I thought it was kind of a cool mystery.
I'm excited.
Good. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's from a while ago. It happened on December 5th, 1945. So, it's really just after the war has ended. So, that's pretty crazy. What a time to be alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so sort of ironically, this is just taking place more in a mundane, like, training facility type scenario. So it's not in the war or anything like that. So I don't know if that makes it better or worse, but that's the way it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was five. They're called Avenger torpedo bombers, which is fun.
Yeah.
I really like the name, especially when they just got to calling them like the Avengers in different sentences. It just made me giggle.
Yeah.
So five of them left Fort Lauderdale for a routine bombing practice run. It's a training exercise. It was called Flight 19 because it was like the 19th such training exercise run that day. So very, very routine. Like
Oh,
all of
okay.
the other ones went very well, and Flight 18 group was out, like pretty much at the same time as Flight 19 was actually. It was,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it was a beautiful day and all that. It's, really nothing should be happening on a day like this. So that's what kind of makes it weird too.
Yeah, there wasn't like mine where it was like rain, storm, or whatever they were talking about.
No,
Bad weather
well,
conditions.
I mean, it's Florida, so they were maybe calling for some rain that evening, but that wasn't unusual. It was nothing that. I mean, they're
Yeah.
trying to learn how to fly and navigate in different weather conditions too. So yeah,
Yeah.
they weren't worried about it. Yeah, exactly. Here's a quote. It was supposed to be a routine navigation exercise and mock bombing run. A squadron of 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers carrying 14 men were to fly to the Hen and Chicken Shoals. It's a fun name, too.
Yeah. Is that a place?
Yeah, I guess a shoal is just like a shallow area in like a sea or other body of water. So it's just kind of
Okay.
like
So,
a
like,
rocky outcropping that they practice. It's a good visible target for them to practice dropping their torpedoes. Yeah, I guess it's
okay.
normal.
Hen and chicken shoal.
Yeah,
Similar.
yeah, right. I love weird place names and island names, and yeah, I can't believe even a shoal gets a name, but it does. They
Yeah.
have to refer to it as something, I guess. For just go over to those ones down there. So yeah, it was they were to fly to the Hen and Chicken Shoals in the Bahamas to practice dropping their torpedoes and then return to the Fort Lauderdale Naval Air Station. End quote. And most of the crew were very young, like in their early 20s, and some as young as 18 and 19. And the like leader was even only like 29. We'll get to him.
Oh. Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
it's
young.
very young. Yeah, oh yeah. It's like there was only one married father in the group, Captain Edward Joseph Powers. I have all of the names because there was like 5 planes full of about 3 men each. So
Oh,
it's a
okay.
lot. Yeah, so I think it's, what did we say, 14 men in this group. The squadron, the leader, flight leader, Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor, and then his crew was gunner George Francis Devlin and radio man Walter Reed Parpart. I didn't read that
Parpar.
name before. Can you tell? Yeah, I was like, Parpart. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, like car part, but with a P.
Parpar. Yeah. Okay.
And then the next plane was FT-36. The pilot was Captain Edward Joseph Powers, and the crew consisted of gunner Sergeant Howell Orrin Thompson and radio man Sergeant George Richard Pawanessa. They each had like a gunner, radio man, and like a pilot. Yeah, except for one that was missing. I believe it was the radio man. But they were like, it's good. We're good enough. They don't go
Yeah.
if they don't have the pilot, but if like they don't have the gunner, they're
Yeah.
just gonna go up on the training exercise. Yeah.
I don't think they can go up without the pilot.
But definitely it was like a bit routine for them to be like a mixy and matchy, and like some people yeah, might be like, oh, I'm too sick to run this run today, or things like that, because it's just a training exercise.
Yeah.
But oh shit, where that was the second one. The third one, FT-81, the pilot was Second Lieutenant Forrest James Gerber, and he only had one crew. He had just William Lightfoot. Because apparently that day Corporal Alan Cosnar had asked to be excused from this exercise, so he might have been sick or something. We're not sure.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
take it doesn't disappear. So then he's like, oh, I survived.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Like those
Well,
weird
yes.
things they talk about where like people are like heading to the airport or something and they end up like missing their flight and then that flight like crashes or something and they're like, I would have died. Like,
Yes. Yeah, or at least that's the parts of the case that people focus on as the the mysterious part. Sorry, there's two more. There's the FT-3, whose pilot was Ensign Joseph Tipton Bossy, and Gunner Herman Arthur Thelander? That's also
These
an interesting
guys
last
all
name.
have such interesting names. It's not like John Smith, like blah blah, David. Like,
No. And to be honest, yeah, the one kind of gets talked about very much a bit, so I hadn't really, if anything, but skim read them before. So it's like,
yeah.
oh. And that one's radio man was Bert E. Ballack. And then we have finally FT-117 with pilot Captain George William Stivers. I remember other people not knowing how to pronounce it on a podcast I listened to. And I'm not sure what the correct is. Yeah, no Smiths. The crew on that one was Sergeant Robert Francis Gallivan, and the radio man was Private Robert Peter Grubel. Whew.
Grubel.
I think so. Gruebel.
Is that German?
That would be my guess. Kind of
Yeah.
sounds like Gerbil. Yeah.
Yeah, Goebel.
Yeah. But no, they were definitely not on that side. They were
No.
American, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're flying out of Florida, so yeah. But so, oh yeah, speaking of different people that may have had feelings about the day or not gone in, the Captain Edward Joseph Powers, the only married father in the group, apparently his wife called the base several hours like before the group left or around the time they, had left on their training mission, and she apparently had some sort of premonition that something bad was going to happen.
Ooh, weird.
Yeah, whether or not that's true, I don't know. I have also heard that the flight leader, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, who we'll talk about a bit, may or may not have said he didn't want to fly that day. And then a lot of people say that he might have had a premonition not to fly. But then I heard, kind of on the skeptical spectacle side that, like, his mom and aunt found out that he hadn't wanted to fly that day and they assumed he had a premonition.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, could be kind of part folklore, kind of, maybe played up over the years. Hard to say. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I go to work and I just don't want to work, so doesn't mean I'm having a premonition that something bad's gonna happen. Sometimes you just don't wanna.
I called in sick that day because I just didn't want to, and then something shitty happened. Yeah, you'd be like, holy crap. Was it like a gut instinct that I wasn't even aware of?
Yeah. I'd be like, I just wanted to stay home and watch Netflix.
Yeah.
But in 1945, I wouldn't have had Netflix.
Right, but still could be a life-saving maneuver. You never know. Could an inherent sense of self-preservation.
Yeah.
Okay, so they ended up leaving. They left the Fort Lauderdale base at 2:10 p.m. on December 5th for this 3-hour exercise known as Navigation Problem 1.
Okay. 3 hours.
Yep, and it's funny because it's literally called Navigation Problem 1, but that's just its moniker.
Yeah. It's like scenario 1.
Basically, yeah. Because they're practicing something that's called Dead Reckoning, and I really love that name, but it's just basically kind of training you how to learn your how to use your compass and your bearings and your math and your watch to figure out where you're going to be rather than always like relying on looking outside your window. Like it's like teaching them how to navigate by, specific math and shit. I'm like, that's pretty
intense.
cool. Right? It's like knowing something's course and then knowing that if it was going to stay on that course, where it would end up, depending on how far and how fast it was going and whatever. So yeah, their flight path was roughly like a triangle. Sorry. Little guy is having his little snack now
Yeah,
too,
I was
isn't
gonna
he?
say, if you can hear Gordo in the background, don't mind him. He's just eating, and his collar hitting his little, like, ceramic bowl just sounds like wind chimes. I don't know. I
Well,
have commandeered...
he's hungry. He was trying to drink your coffee.
Oh my god, which he spilled everywhere. It was like a nightmare. I'm gonna have to, like, Lysol this whole area, or it's just gonna smell weird.
Fucking pets. I love to hate him. I hate to love him. No. Oh, no, Fenrir's the same way. He'll think his collar hits his thing. Or like he just does his big shake and then you hear like his everything clacking together. And when I take his collar off to brush him, yeah, he almost seems confused when he shakes and nothing happens. He's like, I'm quiet.
I have to keep tightening Gordo's because I bought him like an extra large one because he's like a bigger cat and he's supposed to keep getting bigger, so I want it like to not have to keep buying him new ones. Yeah. So I have it basically set to the almost the smallest it'll go, and it still might be just like a little bit too big for him. Cause I've come home a couple times and he's like popped it off, and I'm like, Gordo.
Yeah, they definitely can if they really want to. You're trying to hold on to them by their collar. They're like, nope.
Yeah. Well, Gordo's is like a safety one, so it'll like just unclick or whatever if he like actually catches on anything. So I think he just gets like a paw under it or something and then just pops it off and is like, "Heh."
Probably. Yeah, Fenrir's fascinated by his collar when it comes off. He's like sniffing it and then like puts it in his mouth, and I'm like, I have to tell him to stop because he's gonna chew on the plastic part and crack it, and then I won't be able to buckle it anymore.
Yeah. It's funny.
God damn it.
Yeah.
Jesus, did I get through their flight path? Oh my god, I hope so.
I think you said it was a triangle.
Yep, they go east to the Hens and Chickens Shoals, you'll recall those. Yeah. Then north over Grand Bahama Island before turning southeast back to base. Yeah. Beautiful, I'm sure.
Yeah, the Bahamas.
Yes. Yes, it is significant where they are, too, as we'll get to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 4 of the 5 planes quote, were crewed by 3 Navy men or Marines, most of whom had logged around 300 hours in the air. So that's a lot. And the other one, of course, just had a crew of 2. That's all. But most of them had 3. So, Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor was the leader of this flight exercise, and he had actually conducted several combat missions in World War II's Pacific Theater. And did you know that in warfare, a theater is an area in which important military events occur or are progressing?
Oh my god, would that not just be like everywhere that the military is?
Where major battles are happening, I would say.
Yeah, so I wouldn't classify that as the theater.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they have to have that term, but like, obviously not every area they like march through or go to is necessarily that significant.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just find it I do find it interesting that they call it a theater, but like it can just refer to like, you know, if they're having a battle in this part of, you know, the ocean, say. Like that's why this one's Pacific Theater. Whatever.
No, okay.
Words are fun. But weird.
Yeah. I mean, it is the 1940s, so maybe that's the best word they had at the time was theater.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's still commonly used. I'll have to ask Pat. What do I know? I called it the flying military when I was trying to think of the Air Force the other day. It reminds me of, and maybe I said this at the time, but Arrested Development when the little brother, the youngest brother Buster, is just like, Mother, I'm going to Army.
Oh my god. I love the fact that they basically confirmed that he killed Lucille, like, in the last couple minutes of the last episode. And you're like, wait, what? He actually did? And then
Oh,
the whole
Lucille
series...
too?
Yeah, and then the whole
Okay,
series
okay.
just ends. And you're like, oh my god. Well, at least, like, the reboot that they did on Netflix or whatever.
Yeah.
ends with
Season
that.
4 and 4
Yeah.
and maybe 5. Yeah.
And he's
Okay.
like,
I have to
yeah.
rewatch the reboot. It's so good.
Yeah, they like, I think they find her body or something, and Buster's like, oh damn, you guys found her. And then, or
Yeah,
like,
because they had an
found
affair
her.
for a while, even though that was his mom's friend.
Yeah, something. He says something, and then everybody just turns to him or something. It was like, Buster, you didn't. And then he's like, well, and then like the whole series ends, and you're like, oh my god.
Oh, yeah, what's that guy's name that plays Buster? He's hilarious.
I can't remember, but...
Tony Hale. Tony Hale. He plays
Yeah.
Forky, too, in the latest Toy Story.
Okay.
I love that. That's a funny one, too.
Since I've gotten into like that, I feel like I need to... Is he in Veep? I think he's in Veep.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And now that I've gotten into Seinfeld, I really like Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I think her
Oh,
name
hell
is.
yeah. She's excellent.
And I've tried watching Veep before, like a couple episodes. But I feel like I
Yeah.
need to go back and like watch it and not associate it so much with like Parks and Rec. Just because
Oh,
it's like,
okay. I heard it's
'cause I feel
funny,
like it
but
was-
it's a little
yeah.
different, I think. Yeah.
yeah, I think I was trying to make it too much like Parks and Rec, where I was like, oh, this isn't as funny, and oh, this is like big government, because it's like vice president just feeling like, what the fuck is wrong with these people, where it's like local government in Parks and Rec kind
Right.
of thing. But,
Yeah. Kind of comparing apples to oranges kind of thing. Sure. I
Yeah.
can see that. Yeah. Everything those Parks and Rec office people do is pretty brilliant. Mike Schur.
Yeah.
And all them. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love him. I will continue to basically at least give like a couple episodes go of basically anything he puts out.
I think the newest one's called Upload, right? Something like that. There's a new one.
That was, yeah, Dan Gore, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
This
he was
doesn't-
one of like the executive producers. And I think Michael Schur might be like somehow involved with it. I'm not sure. I watched the first episode and it was pretty
Okay.
good.
Yeah. We like our TVs.
Yeah.
TV shows.
I'm plowing through Outlander again.
That's
So,
exciting.
Yeah, now
It
that
does
I'm
get
past
better after
France.
season 2. Yeah.
Yes, now that I'm past France, I care again. I care once more.
Yeah. A lot of shows I don't care for much of the politics and
Yeah.
war stuff too. I'll kind of skim read that shit. But anyway,
Yeah.
speaking of war, this is just
Yeah.
after the Second World War. Just like when Outlander starts, just after the Second World War. Segue
Oh.
complete. Full circle.
Yeah.
Okay. So once they turned northward on the second leg of the journey from the Hens and Chickens shoals, the trip then started to take a turn for the worse. Taylor then announced, this is the flight leader, that his instruments, and particularly his compass, were malfunctioning. He advised they were probably flying in the wrong direction due to this error. Not great.
Yeah, okay.
Next thing they know, the clouds do start billowing in, bringing the heavy rains and the winds with them. So a storm was definitely a brewing, not just, a little bit of rain or whatever. Probably a little bit more than they were expecting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Lieutenant Robert F. Cox, believe me, I am so tired of spelling the word lieutenant. I did not spell it right in this instance. It's missing
okay.
the U.
When I did my segment, I thought every time I was putting Cooper, like Dan Cooper or D.B Cooper, and then when I was
Yeah.
reading it, I was like, wow, like 75% of the time I put Copper instead of Cooper. So I'd be like reading it and be like, don't say copper, don't say copper. Every time.
You didn't. You didn't say
I know. I did
had
good
no
for the
idea.
fact that I had corrected a whole bunch of them too, but I didn't realize there was still some left. And I was like, how many times did I put copper instead of Cooper? Probably 150.
And then I call myself out and then have you retroactively call yourself out.
Right? I was like,
English is
Yeah.
hard. Names are hard.
well, it's more me typing. I'm really bad at spelling, and I type faster than, like, anything, and I don't like the autocorrect stuff. I'd rather it, like, underline stuff that's spelled wrong, so I always have to go back and, like, I don't know.
Yes, make sure of it yourself. Exactly. Because
Yeah.
it might think you mean something else, and you're like, no, this is a quote. This is
Yeah.
how they said it. You know, I don't want you to correct their grammar.
And they spelled that word wrong, not me. That always makes me feel better.
What? So, Lieutenant Robert F. Cox was one of the first to overhear the communications of Flight 19. He quickly radioed for help from the air station. Then he, quote, contacted the Avengers to ask if they needed assistance. They need help! The Avengers need help!
The Avengers need backup.
They do. Please,
Send
Tony
in
Stark, we
Venom
need some of
and,
your... Yeah, your tech.
Yeah.
Sorry. Lieutenant Taylor responded back, both my compasses are out and I'm trying to find trying to find Fort Lauderdale. I abbreviated it, my bad.
Oh.
Because it's not the big tangent, but sometimes I abbreviate cities to their airport code because I spent so long in travel, and it's so much easier to write FLL than Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
But anyway. I'm overland, but it's broken. I'm sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down. Now, this didn't make a ton of sense to those that could overhear it, like Cox and, the radio tower back home. I think they could hear this too, probably. As they had made the pass over the shoals in the Bahamas, as planned, less than 1 hour earlier. So they should have been still, just to the east of mainland Florida, or the Florida Peninsula, whatever you want to call it. But now it sounded as, they had veered so far off course as to be in the Florida Keys, which actually extend almost due south down from the bottom of the Florida Peninsula. So they're like way too far south if that's the case. One pilot was overheard saying, like one of the pilots of the other Avengers, not the flight leader, Taylor. But this pilot said, I don't know where we are. We must have got lost after that last turn. So many people have since this speculated that Lieutenant Taylor, the flight leader, confused the Bahamas for the Keys. And they base this on, like, he used to live in Miami, not Fort Lauderdale recently. But I don't know. That's like, okay, but yeah, they're still both in Florida. They're like, really, it doesn't mean he doesn't know what the Keys look like from the Bahamas just because he's from a different part of southern Florida.
Weird. Yeah, I feel like if they probably have flown this flight plan like more than a couple times, so I'm sure they know what the like
Well, yes
ground
and no.
under them looks like.
I'm sure he had flown in the area quite a lot, and he had flown over the Keys a lot. But I don't think that Lieutenant Taylor had ever had to fly this exact flight training route before. But that doesn't mean it wasn't hard.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? It was still going to be easy piece of cake for him, having flown in the war and shit,
Yeah.
This one's just supposed to be such a routine exercise. But obviously it's not.
No. Or we wouldn't be talking about it.
Right? It's like, yeah, something's gonna happen. So yeah, they're getting lost now. It doesn't seem like they should have been able to, but they are. It sucks. So I learned that normally if pilots get lost in the Atlantic, they are supposed to point their planes toward the setting sun and thus fly west to hit the mainland. Because, duh, you're not going to make it to fucking Europe or Africa. You got to go west back to where you came from.
Good to know if I'm ever flying a plane and I lose my bearings.
And I'm in the Atlantic, yeah.
And I'm in the Atlantic.
But now Taylor thought, you know how he said he thought he was in the Keys? Well, now he thinks he might be actually in the Gulf of Mexico, which would be on the complete opposite side of Florida that they had started out on. Be east of Florida, and the Gulf of Mexico, which is the big body of water. Like, there's going to be nothing but water until you hit, like, fucking, you know, Mexico and, like...
Yeah.
So, and shit like that. So, it's like, okay. Or Texas. I don't know. They could, yeah. They're just, he thinks they're not where they're supposed to be. So, he doesn't think they're over the Atlantic anymore. He thinks they could be in the Gulf of Mexico, where there would be land to the east and west of them.
Yeah.
Eventually. He said nothing looked familiar to him. He didn't recognize anything that looked like Florida or the Bahamas. So they headed northeast, which, if they were not in the Gulf of Mexico, but in the Atlantic, just put them further out to sea in the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, they would have been flying out to nothing.
Yeah. One crew member was overheard to say, damn it, if we would just fly west, we would get home.
Well, yeah. Oh my god.
I know, it seems like it's going super sideways and doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Eventually, Taylor was persuaded to head west again. However, shortly after 6 p.m., he changed direction again.
Oh my god, no.
Sorry.
That's like being like 10 feet away and then just being like, ah, no, let's try any direction but this.
It's sad because a lot of it places a lot of blame on him, but also from different things I've read, it does seem to be easy to get very disoriented. Easily, or just if you're a little bit off course for a little while because your compasses are out or whatever, well then after you've been going in that direction for so long, now you're super off course. I don't think I had put this in it anywhere, but I think it's interesting how it can happen to snowboarders too, as well as planes that can go upside down and stuff. Like if the sky is very gray and it's indistinguishable from, like in the snowboarder's case, the snow and stuff, you can get confused as to which way is literally up when you're in a spin. And like, I know that it can be like planes can get their bearings, you know, confused as well, and that can be really bad, I guess. Is all I'm trying to say. I don't know, but it's just, it's so, it should have been something that could have been easily fixed, which is what makes it one of those cases that it's really like, ugh, this hurts.
Yeah, I had forgot their compasses weren't working because I was like, well, you'd know which way is west, just go. But, yeah.
Yeah. And they're, like, supposed to be on a navigation sort of training thing, so they're supposed to be just plotting with just their watches and compasses and whatever, and, you know, but still, they're still in training and they're still listening to their flight leader. They don't want to go against him, even though they're almost to the end of their training. I think they're going to, like, graduate to advanced training after this exercise. They're supposed to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he, after 6 p.m., said, we didn't go far enough east. He said, we may as well just turn around and go east again. We don't know for sure, but some say that arguments may have occurred around this time of people in the group getting anxious and concerned. And some say they may have split up based on their military unit allegiance, meaning the 3 flown by the Marine crews and the 2 by the Navy crews. That they may have split up to cover more ground in hopes of finding land or better radio transmissions, as their, like, people could hear them, but they were getting fainter and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And then fuel ran low and they could faintly hear Lieutenant Taylor from the tower. He was prepping them for an emergency landing, which is a crash landing, basically. and they heard all planes close up tight. We'll have to ditch unless landfall. When the first plane drops below 10 gallons, we all go down together. Then static, radio silence.
Jeez.
Yeah. It's shitty.
So, like, the lead plane was the one that had the navigation go out, and then I guess everybody else was following that plane?
Yes, that's the basic understanding. Some of the other, like, each pilot was supposed to have a little bit of, like, when they were doing the training and the practice bomb dropping, where they were supposed to be leading, but then for the most part, the flight leader was in control and like made the ultimate decisions, and he claimed he had the issues, and some think he was missing some of the instruments and things he even like some think he wasn't even wearing a watch, which they're like, that's actually pretty important when you're trying to do calculations and stuff and there's no clocks on board these little planes. But
Okay.
you're supposed to do your own like little flight plan and have your plotting map all done, or I think it was called a plotting map.
That's
I have
intense.
another. Yeah, that one was kind of in my words, but I had another kind of description of the timeline from an article that I read that went over it pretty good also, I thought. Because it's a little jumbled. If we never found them, we never can really confirm any
Yeah.
exact timeline of events other than the communications they had. So, okay, so this one describes it as well. So they had left at about 2, and this one description said that approximately 3:45, Fort Lauderdale's flight tower received a message from Taylor, who reportedly sounded confused and worried. Cannot see land, Taylor said. We seem to be off course. What is your position? The tower responded. Insert noises.
Yeah.
Like when I was listening to it on Astonishing Legends, did like a 3-part
Oh, wow.
series on this. Yeah, that I ended up listening to a couple of episodes on because I was like, ooh, yeah, that sounds like a lot of info. But yeah, they reenacted some of the radios.
Oh, that's how they got it to a 3-part episode.
One of them read this. This guy wrote a book too that we'll talk about here in a little bit about the case.
Okay.
This time I didn't read a whole book on it, like
Yeah.
I did with it, but someone else did. So I kind of, looked at a few of their conclusions. I kept some of the mystery up in it this time because that's what I liked about this case. Is I do like a little bit of the mystery, but it's very sad either way because they're
Yeah.
just basically never found any trace of them again. So to keep this quote, then there were a few moments of silence. Tower personnel peered out into the clear day in the direction where the planes were supposed to be operating, but there was no sign of them. We cannot be sure where we are, the flight leader announced. Repeat, cannot see land. Contact was lost for about 10 minutes, but when it resumed, it was not the voice of the flight leader. We can't find west. Everything is wrong. We can't be sure of any direction. Everything looks strange, even the ocean, the voice reported. There was another delay, and then tower personnel learned from intercepted transmissions that the flight leader had turned over his command to another pilot for unknown reasons. Okay, so yeah, this article said that someone else was leading for some reason.
Oh,
Forgot
okay.
about that. It's, like I say, it's hard to know, right? What the truth is. After 20 minutes of radio silence, the new leader's voice transmitted to the tower, but it was trembling, bordering on hysteria. We can't tell where we are. Can't make out anything. We think we may be about 225 miles northeast of base. For a few moments, the pilot rambled incoherently before uttering the last words ever heard from Flight 19. It looks like we are entering white water. We're completely lost.
Oh.
It's sad. Another source had a slightly different quote for that one. It was basically, "We are entering white water. Nothing seems right. We don't know where we are. The water is green, not white."
Okay.
So they were, I don't know, very disoriented by the sounds of
Yeah.
it, no matter where they were. And the storm didn't help. It's just, okay, sorry, this is apparently not the end of that quoted description. I forgot what I did here. Within minutes, tower personnel scrambled 2 PBM Mariner flying boats carrying rescue equipment. They were headed for Flight 19's last known estimated position, and after 10 minutes into the rescue flight, they checked in with the tower, but that was the last time one of the rescue planes transmitted back to Fort Lauderdale's flight operations. Now,
Oh.
6 aircraft with personnel had vanished. So one of the rescue planes never came back either.
Oh my god. It's like, wow.
It's a horrible loss of life. Um, yeah, I think. Okay, yeah, it gets to it here. For 5 days, Coast Guard, Navy, and Naval Aviation personnel searched extensively in more than 250,000 square miles of Atlantic and Gulf waters, but nothing was found. No aviators, wreckage, life raft, or even an oil slick. Nothing. The Navy launched an investigation into the incident, but nothing conclusive was found. 14 men were lost as a result of the Flight 19 tragedy. 13 more were lost from the PBM Mariner attempted rescue.
Jeez.
And sorry, that I should have said that quote was from history.navy.mil. I didn't write the whole. I was just had to remember which one that was from because I was quoting a big long chunk. But yeah, basically nothing. To the oil slick part, one source I heard of said that a boat somewhere in the general vicinity saw an explosion in the air, and then they thought they saw something that was like an oil slick on the water afterward, but it was investigated and it didn't even prove to be like any oil, and there was no pieces found. So
Oh, okay.
that I don't think turned out into anything. And there's another interesting fact we have to mention and not gloss over, which is that where they disappeared is in the Bermuda Triangle.
I was gonna say, is this the Bermuda Triangle?
Technically, it is. And
After
one
you
thing I
said
heard
the
said,
rescue
yeah,
one disappeared, I was like, oh, I was gonna ask, is this the Bermuda Triangle? What's going on here?
correct. Something I heard, one source said that it was maybe the first story to kind of cement the idea of the Bermuda Triangle, because it came from like somebody wrote an article. Somebody always has to write the first article, right? And
Yeah.
they were the one that said it's from here to here to here, but yeah, that they disappeared in an area which spans 4 million square kilometers, that stretches from like South Florida, usually they say Miami, to Bermuda to Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico. So that's
400
interesting.
million miles. That's so much.
Kilometers, yeah. Yeah. I know. Yeah, that could be. We could definitely do a segment on bizarre triangles, because the Bermuda Triangle is not the only one I've heard of that supposedly has more missing planes and ships and things. There's also one like in Alaska.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I feel like the Bermuda Triangle, it has to be something like weather related. Like,
A lot of
that's
people say that,
affecting,
yeah, that's
like the
a
tides
dangerous
and air at the same
part
time.
of the ocean. Yeah,
Yeah.
just dangerous conditions in general. A lot of people say that's what accounts for the uptick. Yeah, it's true.
Oh, it's unfortunate for any reason though, because I know there's so many like missing
Oh,
people
yeah.
there. Like, that's
Or
horrible.
like ships that just turn up and like ghost ship's crew's gone. Like those are still freaky.
My, before
Yeah.
I chose to do D.B Cooper, or I guess Dan Cooper, I was looking into, like, I can't remember what flight it is, but it's one where, like, they radioed back that, like, something was happening on board and the cabin had, like, depressurized or something, and then
Ooh.
they sent, like, a rescue plane or something that was, like, following them, and they basically got escorted for, like, 2 hours or something. They called it, like, a ghost plane because everybody on board had, like, their oxygen masks were, like, down, but most of them were unconscious, and the pilot had gone unconscious, and then one of, like, the other crew members had, like, taken control of the flight, and they basically escorted this flight because the guy didn't know how to fly the plane and he was the only one left,
Oh my
until
God.
basically the plane, like, just crashed into, like, I can't even remember what it crashed into, and they basically just escorted the plane for 2 hours until it crashed and everybody died. Like,
Oh, how
yeah,
awful.
yeah, I can't remember what it
That sounds
was.
sort of familiar, but just
Yeah.
horrific.
Yeah, I was like, this is
Jesus.
terrible, and
Can
yeah,
you imagine being those people, yeah, that tried to help them? Those kind of
yeah.
cases where people are like there and trying to help someone. Like I recently listened to one that was on Drinking the Kool-Aid's Patreon that was like a cave disaster thing, but it was just like this guy,
Oh,
he like got wedged in a way where his like head was down and
yeah,
his legs were out and they like tried and tried but they just couldn't get him out and it was like that is so fucking scary.
yeah,
So do you want to
yeah.
hear any theories about this one? Because I love the mystery, but I did run across some theories, so
Sure.
I guess we'll put on our I like when people say skeptical spectacles.
Yeah. If you don't want to hear theories, then hope you enjoyed the episode. Bye. But I want to
Yeah.
hear some theories.
The first thing I heard was mostly all about the mystery of it and didn't focus on any theories. And, like, to be honest, sometimes I kind of like those ones, but I feel like I don't do it justice if I don't. Like this,
Yeah.
I found an article that talked about one of the guys that wrote a book about it. So there was definitely some people looking into it, just like with the Lost Panama Girls case.
Yeah.
There were two aviation sleuths, in fact.
Ooh.
That I know I put that in
I
quotes
love
because
a
I
good
stole it from
sleuth.
another article. I know. I think you said sleuth in your case too. Such a great
Maybe I
word.
can't remember. That was yesterday. If we didn't already say, this is a whole new day.
I remember thinking, ooh, both have sleuth, but yeah. um, so they have two people have been working independently on this case for quote more than 25 years, which was at the time of the article on sunsentinel.com, which was written in 2014.
Oh my god,
So,
Gordo, you just jumped
Gordo.
on my laptop. You little shit disturber. Hi, lay down then. Sit beside me
Literally.
and be quiet.
Sit your ass down and shut the hell up. We're leaving all that in. Okay. They both believe that a torpedo bomber found in West Broward County, Florida in 1989 was in fact Lieutenant Charles Taylor's plane. Dun dun dun.
Okay, so like 40 years later.
Yeah. Yeah, because 1945 to 1989. And it's found in Florida. So I was like, okay. It's logical. Broward County is apparently the area of Florida that Fort Lauderdale is in. I said that weird, Florida.
Duh, it's Florida.
I'm saying
Florida.
Florida, you know.
Yeah. Florida.
The artist.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Broward County encompasses from just south of Boca Raton to down to Hollywood, Florida, which is a place.
No.
Which is a place. Holler at us, Hollywood listers. Oh my god. I can't. That's it. I'm fired. Okay. So this guy named John, I'm going to go with Meyer, but it's like Myhre, so I could be wrong, and I apologize if I am. But he is a former Palm Beach International Airport controller, so he's one of these guys that's been researching it. And he says that, quote, the circumstantial evidence we've amassed is pretty conclusive. Nobody had connected the dots before.
Oh, they didn't, did they?
Cool. Toot, toot, that's my horn.
Yeah, I'm like, oh wow, that's like a pretty bold
Humble
thing to say.
Not so humble brag.
Yeah, jeez.
But I haven't read the book, so I can't say.
Yeah.
And I just have this here. I can't remember if they pointed it out, but it's been mentioned that Lieutenant Taylor had been twice needed to be rescued in the Pacific Ocean. So, like, after getting lost when he was in the war. So I don't know. I guess just a point to note that some pointed out, and others point out. Oh my god! I just said point so many times. Sorry. How barely any pieces have ever been recovered from. Oh, they point to another fairly famous missing plane, the Malaysia Airlines MH370, lost since 2014. I almost covered this one because it's also a pretty weird, like, just kind of bizarre missing airline case. The researchers were noting that, most of that one's still missing. And so it's not it's not impossible that planes can go missing and not be recovered again, but there's still quite a few planes in this one, so to me I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, now we're at like 6 in one day.
Correct.
And not have any record of any of them in like what, almost 30 people.
Yeah, and then they think they just might have found just one of them. Like, this is the only time I've ever heard of anyone saying they, think that it might be part of this group. And also, just to, defend Lieutenant Taylor, he had 2,500 hours flying experience. So he wasn't like, just because he got lost twice doesn't mean it was all his fault they got lost this time.
He wasn't some of those newbies with only 300.
No.
Just kidding.
But it does seem like he maybe didn't listen when people kept saying, we should just fucking go west.
Yeah, which is
I don't know.
sad. I mean, you got 13 or 14 people and nobody could figure out where west was.
Oh god. I feel so bad because they're Navy and Marine, like those are elite military units, especially the Marines. No offense, Ressa, the Navy is amazing. My sister's gonna be like, shut up. Navy and Marine, what the hell? They're known for being fucking badass.
Yeah.
And I should mention, I don't think I have it in my notes here, but one of the guys, he was one of those people that did lie about their age to get into the army, so he was actually only 17. He wasn't even 18.
No!
Yeah.
Little baby!
I know. He had, lied and enlisted at, 15 or something shit like that. It's pretty crazy. So, almost done here, but wrapping up about the whole book thing and those researchers, Meyer wrote a whole book called... I just said whole book a million times.
A whole entire book? Not part of a book?
I summarize my notes and then I read them and I'm like, I just said the same thing twice.
That's me in the episode description, trying not to say shares or covers or whatever tells us
Some
3 times in one episode description.
Right. Sometimes I look at other people's descriptions for ideas.
It was smart. I never even thought of that. I'm always like, I just said shares or tells us, like, or covers 3 times in one paragraph. Cool.
Before Alanna tells us this. All before
Yeah.
Alanna. Yeah, you like to say all before. That's funny. I like it. Oh, Gordo.
I know, he's eating
so
again. How dare he eat in the room that I'm sitting in, that's his proclaimed bedroom.
Well, to be fair, you're sniffing a little too.
Yeah. I
But I'm almost
commandeered
done.
my desk back.
That's right. Stand up for yourself.
Yeah, you can't push me around anymore. Little, like, 17-pound cat.
Right? It's like a baby. They just take over your life. No. Okay. So Meyer wrote a whole book called The Discovery of Flight 19, and that the other researcher, Andy Morocco, it's spelled like Morocco, but Marocco,
Yeah.
he read and then got in contact with Meyer. So, quote, Morocco, a Californian businessman, was the one who discovered new information that might break open the 68-year-old mystery. It's like now like 75 years old or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like...
Yeah. He went to the National Archives, and obtained the Navy's 500-page Board of Investigation report on the loss of Flight 19. In it, he found that the USS Solomon's aircraft carrier, while off the coast of Daytona Beach, picked up a radar signal from 4 to 6 unidentified planes over North Florida, about 20 miles northwest of Flagler Beach. So this is in the report on Flight 19. That was
Okay.
at 7... Yeah, I was like, I already felt like I forgot. That was at 7 p.m. on December 5th, 1945, or in about an hour and a half after Flight 19 was due back at Naval Station, Fort Lauderdale. Today, Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. Oh, okay, so that's where the airport is now. Anyway, while at an altitude of about 4,000 feet and flying about 135 miles per hour, the planes then made a turn to a compass heading of 170 degrees, or southeast, important details never before factored into the Flight 19 disappearance, the two men said. I mean, I guess you just read the report and knew better than anyone else. No.
Yeah.
Just making fun of them. Based on the southeast course, Meyer and Morocco recalculated that at least one of the single-engine 8-ton planes would have crashed within miles of where the torpedo bomber was found 25 years ago, or in 1989.
Oh, okay.
That wreckage was spotted by a Broward Sheriff's helicopter pilot in the Everglades about 10 miles west of the Alligator Alley toll booth and about 1 mile north of the highway. Alligator Alley.
Yeah. Doesn't sound great.
I love Florida. Meyer and Morocco now say it's fully possible the USS Solomons was tracking the Lost Patrol. Sorry, it's sometimes called the Lost Patrol, even though it wasn't a patrol, it was a training exercise.
Oh, okay.
But sometimes
Probably
it
just
is
because
called
there's so many of them.
Probably. Folklore, you know.
Yeah, it's all just a big game of telephone.
Basically. So because it was night and there was bad weather, the pilots probably had no idea they had meandered over land, Morocco said.
Really? I feel like between 5 planes and 14, like, fucking people, they can figure out what grass looks like.
So it's interesting because this was where the wreckage is found of what's supposedly Lieutenant Taylor's plane. It's in the Everglades, so it's wetlands. I mean, there'd be some grass, but there'd be lots of water. But then, so I wonder, can
Okay.
something like wash up into the wetlands, into the Everglades from the ocean too? Like, could it have washed up there where they found it, maybe?
Maybe if the tide got, like, high enough, but I feel like
Yeah.
wetlands are pretty, like, stagnant.
I don't know much about the Everglades, I will admit.
Yeah. Well, I guess he did say, like, the water looked green, so maybe it was the wetlands,
That's interesting.
tinting, yeah, because how else would, water look really green?
Well, depending on where you are in the world, yeah. Because you know how some water's
You're
super
gonna...
clear
Cool.
and blue, and others got high levels of. Like, there's some in the mountains, in Alberta here that are, super blue or, turquoise green almost because of whatever's in it. I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting.
Algae.
Yeah, but I can't think. I think it's just, pretty clear waters around Florida. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a,
Oh, cool. Hi.
I have a tiny bit more.
He's gonna get real talkative because he wants something, so he's just gonna keep meowing.
You hungry, buddy? It's okay.
He doesn't
We're
get
almost
fed
done.
for another 2 hours, so shut up.
Oh, calm down, buddy. Okay. They found a rubber heel from a size 11 or 12 dress shoe, which was consistent with a 6-foot-tall man. Yeah. Aw.
You telling
so
us he has the saddest meow. I apologize. He's like meow, meow, as he has food in his dish. I'm so hungry. She never feeds me.
This is what children do. They whine and play on your heartstrings, and they tell you they are so hungry, even though you just fed them 2 minutes ago. You're like, okay, you're not gonna die.
Yeah, calm down.
So yeah, they found a shoe that might have been Taylor's. It was from probably a 6-foot-tall man. Taylor was 6'1", and the plane was in fact a TBM Avenger 3, which was Lieutenant Taylor's exact model of plane.
Okay.
And that's pretty cool. And people noted that no other Avenger planes seemed to have been really lost around that time frame as Flight 19s were. But to confirm an exact match, the researchers want to visit the wreckage to look for the Navy bureau numbers that would be there if it is in fact Taylor's plane, so they could prove it beyond a doubt. But
which is fair.
Yes, but they can't because the wreckage can no longer be found either.
Oh my god. Jesus.
So,
of course not.
I mean, this is how I feel some days when I'm trying to get through life. Well, I just want to do this. Well, we can't do that. That's not working. We're trying to set up today. Well, shit, that's not working. We're like, God damn it. We just can't win. Yeah.
Yeah, after we deal with
thing.
Zoom last night, and then clean feed today, and then headphones, and then Gordo immediately spills my drink, over everything. And it was cool. Just after we got everything set up. Oh my god, Gordo!
Oh.
Sorry, I chucked him. He was trying to rip something off the wall.
No, that was quite comical. It just hurt. Oh my god. And then it went thump, and your sound bar went so far up that it went red.
Yeah. I chucked him. Well, not chucked him. I kind of threw him a foot away from me.
They're fine.
Jesus.
They literally always land on their feet.
Yeah.
So, just on the lost wreckage, we don't know. They don't know if people floating around in their airboats, or hunters, or alligators. I don't know. Have removed parts of the plane, but it's they were in the Everglades, so it's not like it's they washed up on a public beach. That would have been a lot easier, I expect. And they've kind of lost the exact position since 1989. So anyway,
did nobody take pictures?
They did.
Okay.
Of the guys, these researchers saw pictures of the cockpit and stuff. That's how they were oh, okay, yeah, it definitely was the same kind of plane. But somehow all this shit's been lost in time. And with the wreckage lost, they're oh, we didn't get pictures of where the numbers would have been, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Sucks. Yeah. And it was, the pictures were taken, and then the news was made public that wreckage was found, so even people that maybe were looking too, it was public knowledge, so people could have gone there and I don't know, looked for themselves back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, people were just keeping weird stuff.
Right? We've been doing that for centuries, being like true crime murderinos and people taking pieces of like Lizzie Borden's house and stuff. It's just kind of like very macabre.
Yeah. And
But these
now
guys,
Zach Bagans just buys it all back and puts it in a museum and charges tickets for us
true.
to be for us weirdos to go look at.
Hell yeah, and we'd go to the one with Annabelle too, if they
Yeah.
did tours. So, the researchers' theory is that the planes probably split up by military unit, as we mentioned, and that maybe the 3 Marine planes went towards the Gulf of Mexico and the 2 Navy crewed planes went straight south, but I don't know exactly why they think that, because we may never know. There's no exact proof. And that's all I
Yeah.
have on my case.
It's sad. I feel like it just like true crime, like missing persons kind of thing, but like disappearance is always like
Yeah.
hit different because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you just don't know what happened and it's so sad for like the families involved.
True. And one thing I forgot that I had read somewhere but not jotted down was that one of the guys' one of the guys named George, his family's got a telegram a few months after they disappeared or something, and it said, hey, it's Georgie. It's not true. I'm alive. And they were like, we were the only
Oh.
ones that called him Georgie. Isn't that fucked? But it was like probably a hoax because no one's ever found them. So like how could one of them have survived and send a telegram and why?
Yeah, I always look at
So
that and I go, really, you think 13 people banded together and decided that they all hated their family and didn't care if they thought they were dead for the rest of their lives and wanted to go party it up somewhere? Like,
yeah, or else what other scenario makes sense that one of them would be alive? Yeah, nothing that I can think
yeah.
of.
Yeah,
Why
I'll
wouldn't he go
never
back to his family?
understand. Yeah, right? That's the first thing I would do.
Yeah.
Be like,
Unless
hey,
you
I
hate your family.
survived. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I
Yeah.
always hate every disappearance as, well, maybe they did it intentionally. Maybe it was planned from the beginning. Maybe it was this. And it's like, but really? Like,
Yeah, that's very
I don't
rarely the
know.
case. Very rarely.
Yeah.
Especially if they're covering it on a true crime. It's weird enough that they're like, no, this isn't. They wouldn't have done this. Or like
And
when something gets
90%.
touted off as suicide or something, you're like, no,
Yeah.
it's obviously not. They've been stabbed 17 times. How could they do that to themselves?
Right? And like 90% of the time, the person that's gonna like fake their own disappearance has a bunch of red flags before that. It's not like they loved their family, they spent every day together, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then they disappeared and they obviously ran away because they hate their family. And it's like, no.
Yeah, nothing like that. Nothing.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just crazy. Yeah, still a mystery, that one, but
It's
we can
wild.
probably
Well,
guess it's a combination of the factors and,
yeah.
shit was just foobarred from the start.
Yeah, maybe one day they'll find it. I mean, it's not like the plane wreckage or whatever, if it's still in the Everglades somewhere, is going to,
Yeah.
like, fall apart anytime soon. So, I mean, maybe
Yeah.
one day it'll be found again.
Yeah.
Um,
Hopefully. I
yeah.
can see that.
And just recently, in the last few years or whatever, they kind of, like, decided, like, what happened with, like, Amelia Earhart and stuff.
That's true. They found
Like,
more evidence on like an island that people think could have been left by
yeah.
her or something.
So
Yeah.
you never know, even though it goes
Mhm.
cold like almost 100 years. You never
Yeah.
know.
Hopefully
Yeah.
we'll find out.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
wild. Well,
It is. Well,
yeah. We hope
see
you
you next
enjoyed
week.
this episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
What did we decide on? Or should we keep it a surprise and not tell anybody?
Well, we are doing a serial killer next week.
Yeah,
Pretty
let's say
prolific
that.
one.
Let's say that. And then you guys can maybe shout us out on social media and try and guess.
I know some people like to guess, my sister included, so
Yeah.
maybe she'll have a guess for this one.
Yeah, we're doing like a one-off like deep dive episode, so we're splitting their history, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like when we did Ed Kemper on Patreon, it was too big to do it like
Yeah.
just one person's case.
Yeah. So, yeah, try and guess.
We'll see.
We just gave you a clue. It's not Ed Kemper.
Yeah, we haven't even started researching yet. Who knows how many parts it'll be? No.
Yeah.
I don't even know. But we'll hope you'll be there.
Yes. And
Thanks
yeah,
for
catch you
listening.
next week. Bye.
Bye, Gordo.
This has been Castles and Cryptids. You can listen to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Anchor, Breaker, Pocket Cast, and our YouTube channel. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Reddit. On our website, you can listen to all of our episodes as well as view pictures for each of our segments. Check out our Patreon page to view all of our tiers and become a Patreon supporter today to unlock monthly bonus episodes and behind-the-scenes content. We are working on an Ask Us Anything. You can submit questions by social media or by email at castlesandcryptids@gmail.com. Do you have a spooky ghost story, a creepy cryptid sighting, or a thrilling true crime tale you would like to share and have us include in a future episode? Send us your listener story by social media or by email. Please include the name that you would like mentioned. Our music is by Kobe Fair. Our logo and artwork is by Antonio Garcia. Thanks for listening.